Happy anniversary.
I'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome to the October 18th, 2021 Board of Aldermen meeting. First up, we have the minutes from the previous meeting, October 4th, 2021.
I'll move for the approval.
Second.
We have a motion to approve. It has been seconded. Are there any changes, alterations to the previous meeting's minutes? Hearing and seeing none, would all those in favor please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. We are now on to outside the rail. Are there any members of the community here? Yes, please step on up. Just give us your name and address.
My name is Jennifer Bagley. I live in Mendon, but this is my town. This is where I worked, where my husband worked. And I have two things to say to this board and the mayor. The first one is a thank you, because you have shown some leadership that makes me very proud of Rutland, in that you agreed to on the Declaration of Inclusion some time ago, and now you have showed that you are open and willing to help the next batch of refugees that are coming here from Afghanistan, which is in process now. So thank you for that kind of leadership. It makes me proud to say I'm from the Rutland area. But the second thing is, it is an invitation, especially for this group of people, that the first week of November, a bunch of us, a lot of us from Rutland Welcomes, but also other people, are welcoming Sandglass Puppet Theater from Putney, who are going to be here on a 5-day residency. They're going to be doing two things right up the street at the Fox Room at the Rutland Free Library, as well as a lot of activities at Castleton. Castleton University is our partner with that. And they're going to do two things, and I think it would be of great interest, and I would highly recommend you take a walk up the street on November 2nd at 6:45. The Sandglass Theater, in consultation with our refugee settlement people in Burlington, has interviewed refugees and have worked hard, and they have put together a wonderful performance that lasts about an hour. It was supposed to be a live puppet performance with music and a cappella singing, and when we were going to do this 2 years ago, and when COVID hit, it got canceled, it got postponed, and Eric Bass from Sandglass was smart enough to make a film of the performance. And if you think about it, the puppets are about this tall, and if you were go to a theater and you were in the back row, you would need opera glasses to see the puppets, but now you will see it on a film with extreme close-up shots, and it's very, very wonderful. And so that's going to be at the library at 6:45 on Tuesday, November 2nd at the Fox Room, followed by a panel discussion of people that have been involved with the refugee program and a chance to talk. And it's free, it's open to the public, and the only requirement is we all wear masks, because that's the policy at the library. And then on Wednesday night, you may recall that Vermont Humanities has a First Wednesdays program, and they are sponsoring the other activity that Sandglass brings, which is called a Refugee Journey workshop. And what that means is that up from 16 or 32 people will come to the Fox Room that night at 7. Either 4 people will gather around a table, or 8 people, depending how many people come, and each station at each one of those tables will receive an identity of a refugee, and then you will try to go through kind of like a board game Monopoly thing to try to get to safety. And the 4 members of the company that will be here will role play to let you experience what a difficult thing this is, and that game will go on for about 45 minutes, and then we'll have a chance to talk about it afterwards. The same 2 activities are happening at Castleton, so if you miss the chance on this November 2nd, you can go to Castleton University on Thursday of that week, or Friday at 7 at the Jeffords Auditorium, and the same film will be screened there with panel discussions. It's also free and open to the public, and also open to Castleton students. And then 2 of those workshop games will take place on campus, and 1 is happening at Rutland High School. So it's going to be a full 5 days, and at the end of it, we're going to invite any of our 3 Syrian families who are interested, and the volunteers and the Sandglass Company, we're all going to have a little light meal, late morning at Roots, and then bid them all farewell and have a chance to process. And the whole objective of it is for us to have a better understanding of what it's really like to be a refugee and what they go through, and have a better sense so that the next batch that comes, we can do an even better job of welcoming. And you should know that the 3 Syrian families, by the way, knowing that we might get some Afghan refugees, they can hardly wait to help themselves, to just show you how they've become part of our community as well. So an invitation sincerely offered, and I hope as many of you can find some time to go as possible. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Otherwise, I've passed information around, and there's a press release of what's going on specifically at Castle. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from
Get your iPhone on here.
Hearing and seeing none. Thank you again. So we're still on Outside the Rail. Are there any other members? Brennan?
Good evening, everybody. I just wanted to take the opportunity in a public forum to thank the Recreation and Parks Department and the Department of Public Works. If you drove through downtown today, you probably noticed that the Center Street pylons and decks and everything else has been removed, and the street has been cleaned, and both those groups were there at 5:30 a.m. in the dark starting that, and had it done by 8 o'clock, and didn't interfere with any business operations. So it was really a lot of great hard work from those 2 departments, and I just want to say publicly we really appreciate that assistance. So.
Thank you, that's nice.
Cool. All right. Outside the Rail? Your name and address for those who may have forgot.
Everybody got it.
Chris Itori in Gramath in the city. About 7 years ago, I was here with a group of people from Wonder Feet Kids Museum, coming to ask this board for support as we moved into the Tuttle building. Beautiful space. And we've been there and an asset to downtown for quite some time. And this board blessed us with money from the Zemias Fund. And so for that, we are very appreciative. But I come from a different purpose tonight. I'm working with a new project. Actually, Alderman Gillum is on it as well. I believe you all have heard of Rutland's Promise, which will be the first family shelter in Rutland City. And I'm not coming to ask you for money tonight, actually. What I am asking for is for you to, I saw that you have city-owned properties on your agenda tonight. And those of you who have been working in the field of housing know that there's a huge need for transitional housing right now. That can be said for the homeless as well as those who are coming to our area to look for houses to live in, right? There's this transitional time that people need. And so I would encourage you to look at your city-owned properties and perhaps dedicate all of them, some of them, a percentage to transitional use, whether that's putting them out to the private market, somebody who wants to do that for, for their business model. But I know you're going to be talking about what to do with some of those properties, and I'd really encourage you to use those for transitional housing. As an FYI, at Rutland's Promise, we will be opening in November 1st, taking our first family. And while we hope homelessness ends us and we don't have to exist anymore, we do hope to grow after this pilot. And so we'd like to take advantage of any of those opportunities that come our way. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, we are still under Outside the Rail. Do we have any other members of the public who wish to address the board? Hearing and seeing none, this takes us to communications from the mayor. Mayor Allaire.
Okay, well, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much. I just have one item for tonight that I would ask for your support on, and it is in regards to the TIF working group, and it is a recommendation from that working group, which came to the mayor regarding the RFP for a study and creation of a Vermont TIF district for Rutland City. I've had a chance to look over the proposal, as has the group, and it comes from White and Burke, who are the folks who know about TIFs here in Vermont, and they were, I think, the only respondent. I am comfortable with their proposal going forward, and I would recommend that the Board of Aldermen approve the proposal from White and Burke and ask the board to suspend the rules and approve the recommendation tonight.
Alderman Mendon.
Motion to suspend the rules.
Second?
Okay, motion to suspend the rules has been seconded. Would all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
Make a motion to approve the proposal from White and Burke and proceed with the TIF district.
Second.
Motion's been seconded. Is there any discussion, questions, debate? Alderman Caruso.
I haven't seen anything on this. What's the price on it?
So, 30,000 for, section 1 or yeah, phase 1, and 30,000 for phase 2.
And the money's coming from where?
Well, I think that's yet to be decided by this board, but what I've heard is the Zamias Fund.
Okay. And how, has it been to committee?
Kind of. It went to committee, to Community and Economic Development, and then we created the working group and brought that back to the board to approve,
Okay.
and then the working group.
I just checking in case
Yeah, no,
anybody asks me. I want to make sure.
Do
Thank
we
you very
need
much.
An additional motion to propose funding it from the Zamias Fund, or can that be added to the?
So yes, I would ask, but it does make sense that if we're authorizing the RFP to go forward, that we would attach the amount and the corresponding funding source. So
Sure, go ahead and amend the motion or add that onto the original.
Can I amend it to not to exceed 80,000, because there is a line in there that they might need to hire an engineer or an additional consultant for specific aspects, if we would approve that.
okay, so we're asking for the motion to be amended to state that we will proceed forward with the RFP from the aforementioned consulting firm that I just forgot the name of, in an amount not to exceed $80,000 and to be funded from the Zamias Fund. Good? And the original seconder is good? Yep. Great. Any discussion or debate on this? Alderman Gillum.
I just want to make it clear to Alderman Caruso that the committee has suggested that, but it has to go through the mayor's office because it is a grant and had to come back to us. That's why we went that route.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Gillum. Alderman Franco?
It was just a point of clarification. You mentioned multiple phases, so the 80,000 would be for both phases as a cap. And then I guess that is pending the work done in phase 1 to then be approved again? Okay.
Other questions, discussions, comments? If not, we have a motion, it's been seconded to authorize moving forward with this RFP in an amount not to exceed $80,000 for the funding of phase 1 and to be drawn from the Zamias Fund. Would all those in favor please say aye?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
That's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Laird. All right, we are on to additions and deletions to the agenda. We have a handful. First, Attorney Bloomer, we are deleting the executive session request for labor relations agreement for tonight.
Yeah, I guess technically it wouldn't be a deletion if you're gonna adjourn to a time certain.
Okay.
Just be moved to the
Yeah.
latter part of the agenda on Wednesday.
Okay. So we will be moving Attorney Bloomer's executive session request, labor relations agreement to the end of the meeting, at which point we will be adjourning to a time certain, as the chief cannot be with us tonight to discuss this. Additions to the agenda will include Committee of the Whole report, Public Works report, and a Pension Committee report. If I could get a motion to add those.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been seconded. Would all those in favor please say aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Excellent. We're on to reports and letters from department heads and officials. Up first, Andrew, yes, there you are. Planning and zoning, request for referral, city-owned property, pages 1 and 2 of your packet.
So I'm here to request to refer to committee the review criteria for city-owned properties. As you might be aware, we took over 9 properties since August 20th. And as I'm working to assimilate myself into City Hall, I'm working on figuring out a more formal and written process for how we dispose of these properties. Right now, there are some written goals and some policies that I don't think are necessarily memorialized. So my proposal is to at least review the criteria that we've been using in the past on how we've been disposing of the properties, and seeing if there's anything we should be adding or if there's any other goals that we should be achieving as we work through disposing these properties. with the pandemic happening, I think that shifted a lot of how we approach the housing market. So it might be important for the city to re-examine their perspective as we dispose of the properties too. So any questions?
Alderman Dunges?
So I think this is a great idea, reviewing the process. One of the things that I think would be important is to determine at what limit, even whether it's financial or even age, is a good point to tear things down, right? If the entire house is not in tube, or if the entire house is over 120 years old, or the foundation's cracked, like somewhere in that process, tearing down the house is the right move. Because what happens is in this community, when someone can come in and buy that, renovate it a little bit and turn it into a lower income rental property that's not really great for housing, we don't want to see that cycle continue, right? So there has to be a limit where I think, and you can tell me if I'm on the right track or not, but where we're saying, okay, these are good to resell and get out there on the market, and they need to go. And if that's the case, if we put that in the plan, the second thing we need to think about is how do we budget for those tear downs?
Yeah, and those are the conversations that I really want to have with whatever committee it gets referred to, especially if we should have a policy in place for, a minimum bid and stuff like that, and then maybe that can help fund tearing down properties in the future. And I think currently, right now, we're relying on our building inspector and assistant building inspector / health officer on whether these buildings need to be torn down, and it might provide them some assistance. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So I think, if I may, community development has a lot on its plate. So I think I'd like to refer to general committee.
Certainly.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to refer, and it's been seconded to send this to general committee. Any discussion around that as a referral place? Alderman Caruso?
Just going to say to Andrew, let me know when you're ready to put the meeting together and we'll warn it.
Yeah, I'm pretty much ready to go. I've been trying to make the process transparent and accessible as possible. So I'd like to get something in place before we really start looking at disposing of the properties.
Okay, let's hope for next week.
Okay.
Thank you.
So if I may, Andrew, if we could make sure that the city attorney is also noticed and present, and if we could have a copy of what exists currently of goals and policy, because it's been a long time since we've kind of looked at that.
Yep.
I know one of the goals was to remain on the tax rolls if we sold it. That was the whole point of rejuvenating that grand list. And there's been some discussion of market rate housing. Couldn't we use a city-owned property? I don't know what shape these are in, but those are some of the discussions that we said have been going on as well.
Yep, and I'm more than happy to assist with writing, and I'm sure I'll be hoping to get help from Matt as well.
Right. Thank you.
157 State Street.
Mr. Chairman.
So we have a referral, and it's been seconded. Alderman Caruso?
Just one question. I'm looking at it. How's the 20th look? Wednesday this week?
We have another meeting.
You have another meeting? Okay.
Yeah. Probably next week would be better.
All right, we'll look at next week. I'll call you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Alderman Clifford?
Just a question. So there's no one living in these homes, right?
Actually, we do have one building, 19 East Washington, that it currently has tenants, and we've spoken with Stitzel, Page, and Fletcher about how we're going to go about disposing of it. We are able to convey that property with tenants in it, so we are currently operating as the property manager.
Thank you. The other question I have is, are the other houses, these other properties, are they secure? Are they boarded up if need be? Is the plumbing disconnected and all that in case of wintertime breaks?
Yep, and we did start coordinating on shutting off water for the winter months, but for the most part, all of them, I believe, are boarded up, with the exception of 49 and 52 Pine, 19 East Washington, and then 24 Division Street is a vacant lot.
So the plan is to obviously get those boarded up and secure?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So we have a motion. It's been seconded to refer this to general committee. Would all those in favor please say aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
All right, this leads us next to Treasurer Markowski, Treasurers and Pensions Committee reports. Treasurer Markowski.
Hello, thank you. I'll be brief tonight on the treasurer's report because I didn't have the detailed packet ready, and I do apologize for that. So you'll see that November 1st, and I think it's really important when we're looking at the quarter end, especially when we're starting to look at the budget at the same time. So I'll make sure to have those reports ready because you want to see the first quarter actual. I just wanted to give a brief update on the September 30 quarter end. And I did want to report on the tax sale. I feel like last year with COVID, we were very unsuccessful getting bidders. We had a lot of interest pre-COVID, and then when we went to tax sale, that interest was gone. We had slated, I think, 7 properties, started the process. Are we going to tax sale them? We are down to 2 that will actually go to tax sale. That's a good thing. We've had people coming in. We're going to do a payment agreement. We're going to get around that tax sale process and really working with the homeowners a little bit more, hoping to, we don't want to own property. I keep saying that every meeting, but yes, we don't want to own property, but we probably will have 2 go to tax sale in November. We have 4 coming up for redemption in November, and I don't believe we will own any of those, so that's another good sign. I just wanted to report out on that. Pooled cash report, when you're looking at the cash reports, we really have some concerns with that sewer fund, not maintaining a cash balance, parking fund, as we've noted, in the transit fund. We're not seeing a lot of improvement with those funds, so really something I expect when the auditors come in, that will be an issue for us, and how to plan for that, how to reserve for that. I mean, we might have to make some adjustments in our accounting for those, so we'll see that. I really wanted to spend the time tonight on, we had a pension meeting, so any questions on the quarter end reports, the limited information that I gave before I move on to pension? Nope. Okay, we had a pension meeting, pension board meeting on October 14th. We really were looking at the valuation as of January 1, really looking at the funding status of the pension. Funding status as the whole pension, and then the city and the school separately. So I would report that as a whole, the city pension plan has a funded ratio of about 77%. So it's a well-funded pension when you combine the two plans. The city plan has a 58% funded ratio, and the school plan has an 89%. So as everyone knows, we've been struggling with that unfunded pension liability. At the end of the year, the city unfunded, as of the valuation date, it was $20 million, the unfunded pension liability for the city side, and $8.3 million on the school side. I would also note that in the city plan, there are only 66 active contributing participants in that plan. So that plan closed in calendar year 2013, so we're really slowly working down those employee contributions. So that's why when we look at the budget, there's a big budget number to make up for the commitment to really address that unfunded pension liability. In total, there are 1,200 participants in the plan. 522 of those are actively participating contributions, that's school and city. So another note on the plan is we currently work with Prudential Retirement Services, and we received notice that they would be merging with Empower. Empower is a subsidiary or a branch of Great West. So we have a good relationship with the folks at Prudential, and I've learned that they will be moving into Empower. So our service level, I don't anticipate changing, but you never know with a merger, so we'll keep watching that. So I think that's what and I would note that the valuation is on the website, so I passed it out, but if anybody wanted to look at it, there's a tab for retirement plans, so.
And I think if I can add, the pension is performing as it should. We're meeting our obligations to the employees that have retired. As Mary said, we do have to we do have to have a discussion of the unfunded balance, as do the schools at some point. And I think some folks think that we have to be 100% funded, and that's not a requirement of pension to be 100% funded. You have to meet your obligations, and currently, we're doing that.
Other questions, comments for Treasurer Markowski?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you. All right, up next, Attorney Bloomer. Resolution regarding financing documents for new Vactor truck purchase, pages 3 to 21 of your packet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I provided you with a memo. The summary of the memo is that the new Vactor truck is ready to be purchased, and the treasurer has found, again, several attractive proposals for the financing of the truck. That has been approved by the Board of Finance, and the only thing left to do is to have this board approve the financing documents themselves and authorize the mayor to enter into those documents. So the bank has provided their form of resolution, which I've revised slightly, but that's on pages 4 and 5. So the request tonight is to have the board make a motion to adopt the resolution relating to a lease purchase agreement with Signature Financial for a new Vactor truck.
So moved.
Move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Motion to suspend the rules has been seconded. Would all those in favor please say aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Alderman Clifford.
I would move to adopt the resolution relating to the lease purchase agreement with Signature Financial for the new Vactor truck.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, it's been seconded. Is there any questions, comments, debate on this issue? Hearing and seeing none, would all those in favor please say aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Attorney Bloomer.
Thank you.
All right, so this is going to bring us up to reports of standing committees. Up first, we're going to let Alderman Talbot go, Community and Economic Development. This was emailed to all of you, and I believe it's actually on each of our desks as well.
So the Community and Economic Development Committee met on October 12th, 2021. Members present included myself, Sharon Davis, Bill Gillum, Mike Dungis, and Devin Neary. Others present, Matt Whitcomb, Paul Clifford, Tom DePoy, Dave Allaire, Brennan Duffy, Barbara Spalding, Mary Markowski, Chris Satori, Lyle Jepson, Gordon DeTrillo, Philip Allen, Marlene Allen, Greg Cox, Colleen Wilcox, John Weatherhog, and John Kalish. The meeting was called to order at 5:30. The first item on the agenda was a proposal by Philip and Marlene Allen of Same Son of Vermont to develop a solar array at the corner of routes 4 and 7. The Allens explained that the development could potentially host food trucks and would also contain an electric vehicle charging station and kiosks with local tourism info. The Allens inquired about the possibility of changing the taxation status of the property or reducing the property taxes to help encourage a lease agreement between themselves and the property owner. Alderwoman Davis explained that any abatement or change in taxation status could only be made by the property owner. Alderman Neary expressed enthusiasm for seeing this blighted property redeveloped, but was concerned that the intersection is not currently friendly to the additional pedestrian and bike traffic the development might attract. The Allens asked the city to consider prioritizing a traffic study for the area. Alderman Gillum suggested they contact the Agency of Transportation as the site could be redeveloped as a potential rest area. Alderman Dungis expressed optimism that the city could play an important role in removing roadblocks to the project as it developed further. No motion came out of the discussion. Next up, Greg Cox, board president of the Vermont Farmers Food Center, brought forth a proposal to explore the feasibility of a multi-site project spanning the VFFC's existing location at 251 West Street, a vacant lot on Baxter Street, and 10 Cleveland Avenue, the former Linda Lee dress factory. To support the project, Cox sought $32,500 from the city of Rutland, both to fund the services of M&S Development and as a demonstration of community support. Of particular importance to several committee members was that the completion of the feasibility study would make clear the capacity of 10 Cleveland Avenue as a redevelopment site. Alderman Gillum argued that this would be a small investment to learn what could be done with this long blighted property. Alderman Talbot hoped that investing in the first phase of this project would help bolster the city's application for a TIF district. Alderman Neary argued that if we don't have concrete projects lined up within the next 9 months, we are unlikely to be successful in our TIF district application. Alderman Dungis made a motion to fund the $32,500 from the Zamias Fund, and the motion passed 5-0.
All right, so we have a motion coming out. Is there any Alderman Gillum?
I would like to move to table the issue.
Second.
We have a motion to table the issue. It has been seconded. Would all those in favor of tabling this issue please indicate by saying aye?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Continue on.
All right.
Table for next meeting.
Okay. Colleen Wilcox, the artist who created the Greetings from Rutland, Vermont graphic, spoke to the committee about potentially painting the image as a 10-foot by 15-foot mural on the west-facing side of City Hall. Each letter of the image depicts important Rutland City locations and traditions, including the Halloween parade, the Paramount Theater, and the downtown skyline silhouette. Her hope is that the mural will become a popular photo opportunity for visitors. The cost to paint the mural is estimated to be approximately $37.50. Alderman Neary expressed support for the project, emphasizing that it would build off the existing mural culture in Rutland and could gain traction on social media. Alderman Talbot shared that he had spoken with the director of the Downtown Rutland Partnership, who is willing to help Wilcox explore funding options, including a potential crowdfunding campaign. Mayor Allaire indicated that his office is happy to work with Wilcox on the logistics of creating the mural and coordinating with the DRP. Next up, John Weatherhog and John Kalish spoke to the committee as representatives of Heartland Development and asked the committee to recommend to the Board of Aldermen the opening of the Environmental Review and Community Development Block Grant application process. Barbara Spalding of the RRA gave a broad overview and timeline for the process. The purchase and sale agreement between Heartland and Heritage needs to be converted to an option agreement as soon as possible in order for the project to be eligible for the environmental review and not become a choice-limiting action. The RRA suggested adding Heartland as a writer so that they can upload to the online portal the information they already have, and the RRA is working with VCDP to determine what information remains. The environmental review release letter could arrive as soon as December 15th. There's a 15-day warning built into that process, and that has to be published in the Herald with a 15-day period for people to comment. Any comments received are sent to the state and become part of the environmental review. This timeline would allow acquisition to happen in January, provided all of these things happen according to plan. The pre-application is information needed to come to the board and ask them to set the public hearing. During the 15 days between the warning and the hearing, members of the public have the opportunity to view that pre-application in order to know what work is planned and where the money is coming from. The city would then start the application in March 2022 and assist Heartland in answering 26 to 40 questions. There is a process that the RRA typically does with applicants. The public hearing would be held on March 18th, and the application would be submitted on April 12th, 2022, allowing 8 weeks for the CDBG board to provide feedback or suggestions for revision to the application. The board would then meet June 9th and make an announcement around June 15th. Then there is a 30-day window for the city to receive the grant agreement. All of these dates are provided as a guide but are subject to change. Once the grant agreement is signed, provided the award is given, there's a benefit and performance agreement which protects the city. If Heartland should not develop the property, then the benefit would not be met and the liability would fall on Heartland and not the city to repay the grant money. August 14th, 2022 could be the date the grant funds could be received. The grant funds are reimbursements. The city would have to pay the bills, submit a requisition, and be reimbursed. Because Heartland does not have a nonprofit working with them, VCDP cannot give money to them. It can only give money to the city for infrastructure. The specific infrastructure project is yet to be determined. Alderman Dunn just asked if VCDP has to accept the benefit and performance agreement between the city and Heartland. Barbara explained that it has to be submitted to the state, and without it, we can't draw funds. Alderwoman Davis asked if Heartland has any funding in hand for this project. The Heartland representatives explained the investors have put up between $500,000 and $700,000 in seed money that has been spent to date. Alderman Davis had to depart the meeting at 7:38 p.m. Alderman Dunn just asked if Heartland was prepared to repay CDBG funds if the development project is never completed. Brennan Duffy clarified that the grant being sought would not go to Heartland, but to the city of Rutland. The city will be asked to build some sort of infrastructure asset of which it will maintain ownership. Alderman Neary sought clarification that opening the portal for the environmental review was simply that, with no further commitment from the city. Barbara Spalding confirmed that is correct. Alderman Neary made a motion to open the portal for the environmental review application, pending conversion of the purchase and sale agreement to an option agreement. Motion passed 4-0.
Do we have any discussion or debate on that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Hearing and seeing none, we have a motion. It has been seconded. Would all those in favor please say, Alderman Grissom, sorry.
Yeah, I read it a couple times at home, and just trying to get my head around this or whatever. So if this thing goes belly up, the company that went belly up is supposed to be responsible for paying the loan? Is that a fair way to look at this? I mean, so, and if they went belly up, the chances are that they don't pay the loan, then what happens?
Bren, if you could.
So what we're talking about in this situation would be the city as the direct applicant to the VCDP program. So there is also a couple legal pieces of that, and we would be assured that if, before any money is spent, before money is requisitioned, that this project is going forward. So I don't think there's a liability to the city. If Heartland was to not pursue the project, we wouldn't have expended any of that money, even if we went after the grant. If they went out after this has been created, my understanding is that that grant money is not necessarily being repaid to anyone. It's the city's infrastructure that was granted. So
We still have something, we have an asset out of this, is what you're saying, Brendan.
So we would have basically improved property there within the city using that process. And there is another beneficiary note that basically says Heartland is going to go forward with their housing program that's going to benefit the low to moderate income folks. And that's basically why this money would be granted to the city if it is.
Great answer. Thank you very much for your help. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions, comments, discussion? Alderman Gillen, did you have something?
No, I want to wait till this motion's over. I have
Sure.
another item.
Absolutely. All right, then would all those in favor please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Alderman Talbot?
Meeting adjourned at 7:56 PM.
Alderman Gillen?
Yes, I forgot that Elizabeth Poulos was in the audience here to talk about the farmer's market and why we tabled the issue. So I would like to give her the opportunity to tell us why.
Certainly.
Ask a clarification, did you table it for me?
We just table it, so give us some time to work with you.
Oh. So do you want a motion to not table it and just let me talk? And
No, you
see where
can,
it
you
goes?
can.
Okay. Hi all, I'm Elizabeth Coulis and many of you know me, but I don't know all of you and I certainly have not stood before you, any of you, as I do tonight. I was the longtime Executive Director of the Housing Trust of Rutland County for 27 years, during which time I developed $50 million worth of affordable housing in Rutland County, not all of which was in the city, but that totaled 380 units and included the Tuttle Block here in downtown Rutland, among other projects. I retired from the Housing Trust at the end of last year, and I am now getting into a new chapter of my own life as a consultant, and I'm working under the name of Coulis Consulting, and I'm doing organizational leadership and community development work. And I'm committed to Rutland County. So while I've been asked to work outside of the county, my love is here, and my focus is here. I have been working with the Farmers Food Center for several months now, and they have actually contracted with me to do an organizational assessment to help them understand what's working, what could be improved, and what do they need to put into place in terms of staffing, if any, and systems so that they can be a viable entity on a new and expanded campus for many, many, many years to come. And they have looked to me because, just to give you a little bit of history, at the Housing Trust, they started as a one-person staff. And over the course of the time that I was there, grew it to 15 or more staff with a lot of different responsibilities and a very complex organization. So I have been working with them for the past many weeks and will be making formal recommendations to their board and staff at their November 14th strategic planning session. And I want to tell you that they are an incredible group of people, an incredible group of staff, and the full board. I know you all see Greg, and Greg is the one who's out there, but there are a number of other people that serve on that board and dedicate countless hours to make that organization as successful as it has been up to this point. It's an organization that's grown organically no pun intended, but they do one program, they get a grant, they do a program, they do it super, super well, and that program director runs that program, and then they see another need, and they run that program and do it super well. So it's actually kind of a collaboration of programs that really needs to make that transition to a holistic organizational approach. They are very receptive, and I'm very excited about the potential for this organization to really rise up to this challenge as they embark on their campus expansion. So I want to give you that background. I believe that they are about to embark on a huge transformation for their long-term growth, and they will become a sustainable key contributor to the Rutland regional economy. I think it's pretty amazing and fantastic that agriculture that we think of as being kind of out in the fields in the more rural communities can actually be an integral part of the Rutland city and Rutland regional economy at that site. So, as you know, they have growth plans for their campus, and they are actively seeking funding and preparing for the build-out. And when they first started moving forward with this, they reached out to Bob Stevens at M&S Development, which is, I believe, Vermont's preeminent large-scale economic development and mixed-use redeveloper for the state. They are a private entity. When they reached out, M&S was very interested in working in Rutland, has worked with Brennan in the past, has worked on the Berwick site, and really would love to continue to support Rutland's economic development and redevelopment, I should say, agenda. But they really need to have, in order for their projects to be economically viable, they need to be of a certain magnitude and size. And the VFFC campus right now is not big enough, budget-wise, to really warrant the resources that they would bring to the table, primarily the new market tax credits. So what Greg was asked was, can you make it bigger? And of course, you never ask Greg that question and expect to get the answer no. So of course he said, of course we can make it bigger. We really need, as a community, to tackle Linda Lee, and we ideally would secure the properties that are in between the campus and Linda Lee so that we really can make that whole area really work. So since that conversation occurred and M&S made a proposal to VFFC, which is the proposal that Greg brought to you all, a lot of things have happened. The VFFC was successful in securing Northern Borders grant, which is huge, a $350,000 infrastructure grant. They're a very competitive program, and those funds have been secured for what we call the Blue Building, which is the building next to Farmers Hall that you all know from the farmers market. They also are still in the running for $1.68 million through Congressman Welch's request to Congress for the earmark, and they are working on other grants. There's at least one, if not more, potential ARPA grants that are in the works at this time. And they have brought me on board to do this assessment. So a lot's changed. And I should tell you that when M&S made the proposal, I was already at the table, just as an interested community member and somebody that has a lot of community development experience, and they were very much interested in cultivating me as a potential employee to work with them specifically on this project. So because I'm now working in this other capacity for VFFC, I think it's really important to be transparent about my role and what's going on, and I also feel it's important for me to wear one hat. And I think it gets really, really complicated if I'm working for M&S on this project, but also working for VFFC. So I am in the process of talking with VFFC about how I can do project coordination for them, how we can still engage with M&S, because they have expertise that I do not have, and we need them as part of this project. We, Rutland, need M&S as part of this project, this bigger project, to make this happen. And so that piece needs to be revisited. The work is the same, the cost is probably the same, but exactly who's doing what, and it's going to include me, either, no matter how it works, is the piece that needs to get figured out. The other piece that needs to get figured out is, God bless Greg Cox for not waiting for anybody else and bringing this forward, knowing that there's more money out there right now for redevelopment of everything than we have ever seen and we ever will see in the future, and for acknowledging that somebody has to step up. and get the ball rolling. But this is not a project that VFFC is going to be successful doing completely on its own. VFFC is not a community development organization. They're an economic development, they have an economic development focus and an inclusion focus, but they are not a real estate development company. And there's a lot of expertise in this community around community development, and we need all of those heads at the table. We need everybody working together on this project. The city, RRA, the Regional Planning Commission that's already doing a lot of environmental work, Vermont from VFFC, and other potential entities that would occupy all of these spaces. So while I'm thrilled that Greg put himself out there, right now is the perfect time for all of this to gel. And I will tell you, I actually spoke with John Ruggiero, who is the property owner. I spoke with him today, and he is super excited. He is priming, he's doing his part to do what he needs to do to be able to clearly sell clear title as it relates to his mortgage and his financing and any other liens that he has on the property. So he is excited that you all have been having this conversation. He's excited. He had met previously with Greg and Chris Kieser of the VFFC board, and John is ready to do what he needs to do for the community at large and the region at large to make this project work. So I know that there was a motion that was put forward tonight. I do feel like there are a couple of things that need to happen in order for VFFC and its partners to really kick this into high gear. And I don't think it's going to take a lot of time, but as I said, I need to work with M&S and VFFC and our other partners in the community to figure out exactly who's going to do what. So my ask is, if you would consider the motion that was originally put forth tonight, my ask would be that you approve that motion with conditions, and that these conditions would have to be met before any funds could be released. And the conditions would be that the Phase 2 environmental assessment, which the Regional Planning Commission's Brownfield program is currently undertaking and I believe is well on its way to completing, that Phase 2 environmental assessment be completed, that site control be secured, and that VFFC with Greg and I come back to you all with an updated budget and scope just to make sure that it's within the original ask. So I want to tell you that action tonight demonstrates your commitment to redeveloping this site, that there's a significant amount of momentum in the community and here, and that this is smart action, to take action with these pieces attached. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Alderman Grusso?
I'm thinking out loud, maybe I'm wrong. Instead of tabling this, shouldn't we just leave it back in community development? Because it wouldn't get reported out until the next meeting anyway. So then they can work with it. Right now, table, they can't do anything to it. Any addendums or anything, so.
I think we've already moved to table it at this point.
But we should be able to untable.
Yeah, we could.
Remove from the table. I hate untable.
If people so wish. Alderman Davis?
So, thank you for coming. I asked for you the other night because I think I had the same kind of concerns. And I feel better, but I have to tell you I'm not there yet. I feel better tabling the motion until you come back to this board with the needed and necessary information. And then I'm glad to reapprove whatever dollar amount is out there. But I think I want to see a better commitment from the board of directors from the Fire and Food Center. Greg alluded to, correctly or incorrectly, I don't know, that they were I don't think afraid was the term, but kind of fearful of this project, how it was gonna kind of flow out, what money had to be put in. And I'm not sure the city should be the first person that you ask for money. That aside, So those are a couple of my concerns. And I don't know where, if any, purchase or sales agreement is present with Johnny Ruggiero for Linda Leaves.
So can I answer?
Sure.
First of all, I should have said that I'm here at Greg's request tonight because Greg actually wasn't able to be here, and he asked me to stand in, and he and I have reviewed this entire, what I just presented to you, so he's on board with what I brought forward. I can tell you, because I've had conversations with multiple board members, and I have seen communications, informal communications, that the board did approve a motion and that they are prepared to move forward. This was discussed at the VFFC board many months ago when the M&S proposal first came forward. And the concerns were, and they're good concerns on the VFFC board. They didn't want to be the only ones driving this, which is appropriate. And I think their concern also was around the sustainability piece, which is why I'm working with them on it, and why we already have a plan and a timeline to make that presentation. So I think that some of those concerns there's already movement all along the way, and we have been looking for funding. The challenge is that this type of project typically would be pursued by a regional community development organization or a community development entity. And we have the benefit of having multiple in our region. And so really, that's who needs to step up. You may all know, I should have said this before, but when I was at the Housing Trust, I had this property under contract. I'd done a lot of work on it. I worked closely with John and with the Regional Planning Commission on the initial brownfields work, because that was a very significant obstacle to anybody doing anything on that site. I've had the historic preservation consultant there. I've talked with architects. There's been a fair amount of work done when I was at the Housing Trust, because when I was at the Housing Trust, that's what I, Elizabeth Koulis, as a creative and innovative developer, did. And it was too big a project for the Housing Trust to take on its own. It's too big a project for VFFC to take on its own. It really needs the city and all of the community development expertise that the city can pull together, including me, VFFC, potentially the Housing Trust, the RRA, Cedar, Regional Planning Commission. And if the city, you all, ask for that to happen, then the rest of us have to step up, because you have taken action that's really important. As opposed to an organization, any one of us, or even all of us together coming to the city saying, will you bless this? If you all say this is a priority for our community, bring back to us how you're gonna make it happen, then that's a huge statement. And we will bring it back, and we will figure out how to make it happen. So I understand it's a little bit different from what you've done in the past. I do think this is a conversation that needs to continue, and it probably will continue for many, many months, probably a couple of years, because it's a big project, it's complicated. And you deserve to know what the various pieces, the steps are along the way. But I do think that there is something significant about you taking action, and it doesn't put any money at risk. It sends a very strong message, positive message.
Thank you. Alderman Dunges?
So maybe you can help clarify a couple things for me. When we were in the CED meeting, we were talking to Greg. Our understanding of the M&S piece that we were discussing funding directly, which, with the money that we put up, was to review the capabilities of if the project was viable or not, correct? So waiting for the phase 2 to come back and waiting for making sure we have those properties, is there a reason that can't be done in line? Like, wouldn't we want to know if the project was viable before we went through and looked at those other pieces? You know what I mean?
Yep, that's a very, very good question. Phase 2 is critical. Well, actually, they're both critical because they're both price points. So negotiating what, if any, acquisition price or what that trade-off is going to look like. Understanding what the environmental costs of cleanup are going to be. Those are critical to demonstrating whether it's they're absolutely essential to demonstrating whether it's financially viable. And so and there's all kinds of things. What's it going to be used for? If it gets, honestly, and pull me back, but if it gets redeveloped as housing, it enters into a whole nother level of environmental cleanup, and if it's not, and so all that concept stuff, there's some stuff that needs to happen. And so, you know, an alternative to your motion could be that you're willing to contribute up to $30,000 for the initial feasibility study, which would take it, you know, M&S will be involved, but it won't necessarily be that contract as it was laid out for the initial feasibility study. And that's the limit on that the city is going to contribute from Zamias. Any additional money that would be necessary would have to come from other sources.
That's a great.
Other questions, comments? Alderman Franco.
Yes, I just have a question regarding the selection process of M&S development. If we apply our funds to securing their services, if we apply our funds to securing those services, do we have to engage on our own RFP selection process, or can we just apply those funds toward an entity they've already selected? I guess that's more a question for Attorney Bloomer.
Yeah, generally with the Zamias funds, we would treat them as a grant to the organization, and then the procurement would be, you know, as to how they have their bylaws set up. If we were going to do something different here, where it was a direct relationship between the city and M&S, then it would trigger, you know, our charter provisions to do so. So I'm not sure what's contemplated, but a lot of times the Zamias money is there could be a contingency or two, but it's usually given to the organization with not many strings attached as to, you know, how specifically it's used. And it wouldn't, in that case, trigger anything in our procurement policy.
Okay, so using them as a middle organization, we're able to essentially get around that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's always the reasoning for it. I think it is just kind of seen as they have a project that we would like to contribute to, and you know, because it's not a direct vendor relationship for us, it doesn't trigger our procurement policies, but it might, depending on what organization we're giving it to, trigger their procurement policies. But you certainly could, if you were interested in, you know, you could make that a string that's attached to the Zamias money to ask them to go through a certain process to, you know, find the group. But if your question is more technical, then that was, you know, my original response addresses that, I think.
Okay.
So I have another question.
Alderman Davis.
So Elizabeth, with the proposal to the motion to change it like to 30,000, whatever, I guess still, is there a time frame that you're looking at that's urgent? Or can this motion wait until you get that information you spoke of and can come back to the board?
I would suggest that it is urgent to get a commitment on the table so that the process can get started.
So if I can follow up, so does the commitment have to be financial or a letter of support at this time?
Financial. Part of the problem, part of the situation is that there's money associated, there's costs associated with doing the feasibility study. There's going to be my time, and there's going to be, you know, M&S and potentially other third-party entities, a historic preservation consultant, as an example. There's collaboration work that needs to happen to bring this together so that it's really what it needs to be for the city. And that's going to take a little bit of time. And my concern, Sharon, is that if there's not a commitment of funds, then everybody's going to remain reticent to move forward. Until there's some significant commitment to Linda Lee and the VFFC Linda Lee potential campus, you could, let me give you another option, you could designate it specifically for the Linda Lee piece, so that it's specific to the expansion of, you know, to Linda Lee, for the feasibility of Linda Lee. But and that really is city-driven, until funds are committed, it's going to continue to linger. And my concern is we have about 21 months of this ARPA money and opportunities to draw down significant amounts of money and to pull everything together. And then that door is going to close, that money is going to need to be spent. And I just don't want to see it linger in committee. Or in, us trying to figure out like who's going to drive it because nobody's committed any money and nobody's quite ready to put money forward.
I'd like to make a motion to untable so that we can amend and discuss the motion.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion to remove from the table that has been seconded, the original motion that was placed forth. Would all those in favor of untabling that motion, please say aye.
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 Those opposed? All right, so the original motion of, let me find it here.
Fund $32,000.
Fund $32,500 from the Zamias Fund is now on the floor and open for discussion, debate. Alderman Garuso.
Yeah, just because I want to be really clear on this, I got a call earlier this evening from Alderman Gillum, and he said that for you, Ms. Coolis, you just needed some more time to do some stuff, so we were just going to table it to get, and then you'd be more prepared, I guess, in the next meeting to say, let's do it. I have no problem with giving you the money. I have no problem with seeing this project go. I think that what's going on over there has been one of the greatest things since the railroad left town. But the deal is that I was asked to vote to table it, and that's why, and then I still think the whole thing belongs in committee. And anyway, it perpetually belongs in committee, so you don't have to come through us as much. So that's why I support the motion to remove from the table, and I also support the motion to keep it in committee. And therefore, now, how much money, I guess if the board wants to move on that tonight, or do you need the 2 weeks that Bill Gillum asked me about?
I don't, and I apologize for any confusion on that. I'm not sure how that all came about, but let's just put that behind us and move forward.
Okay, so you'd like some money tonight?
Sure.
If I can, are we in debate at this time?
Yes.
So we're in debate.
Is there a motion on the
to-
floor?
All right.
We untabled
So the original motion is back, excuse me, on the floor to fund it.
Okay.
I'm still uncomfortable. And I think it's a significant amount of money for a feasibility study. And there's still some unanswered questions that you yourself alluded to. And I would feel 100% better if I had some of those answers in 2 weeks. I think the city, it doesn't mean that the city is not showing support. I think the city is doing its due diligence of spending taxpayers' money and knowing what those answers are.
Can I speak? I'm just not sure what the timeline is going to be. 2 weeks would be great.
I don't know either.
But I'm not sure that it's going to be 2 weeks. Because there's a lot of things that have to happen, and I just want to correct that piece. Like the two weeks isn't enough time.
I understand.
To resolve what you're concerned about. Your concerns are valid and we need absolutely, which is why I offer to put those conditions on. I don't know, Ed's not here tonight, and I don't know what the phase 2 timeline is and when that report's going to be ready. I'm sure it won't be in 2 weeks. So as an example.
Thank you.
Alderman Neary, then Alderman Sure.
Well, I think the intent of the amended motion captures the intent of the original motion, which is more about this show of confidence and support from the city side. So I think the conditions bridge that gap for everybody, the folks that really want to see it go and the folks that have hesitations. Both are very correct in their thinking, but this leaves us in a position to say, you're not wasting your time if you do all this due diligence on your end and bring it back to us. And we're also not wasting our time because we are still showing that vote of confidence. So for me, it seems tabling it is the same thing without leaving them out to dry if we all of a sudden get cold feet.
whereas, they can still go and do their work. So I guess for me, I support the amended motion because it doesn't leave us at any risk, but gives them the confidence they need to move forward. So.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Talbot.
Yeah, I mean, the concern for me is that maybe you can answer, can we ever get to 100% certainty, right? Like, I don't think that waiting 2 weeks or 2 months will ever get us to 100%, and I fear reaching for the perfect being the enemy of the good. And you don't know what you don't know until you start digging in. So I support moving on this tonight.
Thank you. And so, Alderman Gillum, go ahead.
My intent to table was not to stop the process. The intent was to help add some certainty and some clarity on where we're going, but what I heard tonight is enough clarity for me to move forward, especially in our neighborhood. So I think we've been waiting a long time for something to happen in that neighborhood, so I'm not interested in slowing this thing down. But what I would like to suggest, that once they get their information together and they have their proposal, it goes to the RRA to review, and it comes back to us for final, to release the funds. I think we should give them the funds, but then we don't release it until we have a go from the RRA. That would be my suggestion.
Thank you, Alderman Gillum.
So I just want to make sure I'm clear, because I think those are my concerns, is that we're releasing funds. Well, okay. So it's a rock and hard place. Okay. We're looking at a feasibility study that may not be feasible. Okay?
Right.
We don't know that.
Right.
And with all due respect, we don't know that. But that's $32,000 of Zemaya's money that is not going to replenish itself because it's done collecting whatever to go in at the time. And I understand city's skin in the game. I've been here long enough. My feet don't get cold, just so you know, Alderman here. I've never gotten cold feet. I understand all that. But you know, too, you never came to this board without such a significant plan that there was not question. We don't have that plan. In all fairness, because you're not there.
Yep.
But you're asking this board to take a leap of faith with $32,000, and it may be a leap of faith that doesn't come to fruition as well. Now, to not support the Farmers Food Center, like not to believe in God, I mean, honest, nobody is against the Farmers Food Center, but I'm just not sure that the city puts the skin in the game first. So that's an issue that I have.
So when I brought you projects before, I had resources that were statewide resources available to do feasibility analysis. So when I came to you before, I was in that role of having a project that had been vetted. And I was coming for implementation money most of the time. Right. Probably did 1 or 2 planning grants while I was there. But this is kind of more like the planning grant piece, right? And I know you have plenty of planning grants. The thing and I can say this to you, and I can say this to Bill and to several others of you that have worked with me for years. It's not if, it's how. Okay? This project, Linda Lee, that site, we all know, it's not going to sit like that forever. And something needs to happen. And the sooner it happens, and the more we work together, the more constructive and the more the outcome there can have the kind of impact on the region, not just the city, right? But this is different from what I've worked with you before, because this is me and VFFC coming to you all to say, you need to believe in our ability to figure out the how. It's really more about the how than the if. And that's where I come in. M&S is going to focus on will this one concept work? I'm looking at what concept is going to work, and let's make it happen. Okay, and that's the piece that Rutland needs for this site. So that's a distinction between what you've seen me do before and what this project desperately needs. And I think that given that there's no one entity that exists that's going to bring you that package, doesn't exist. I couldn't do it at the Housing Trust. I was too small an entity for such a project. That's why this feels different and it's okay to feel different. It's okay to feel uncomfortable. And I don't mind you holding me accountable to figuring out how. It might take me more than $30,000 and it might take me more than a few months, but that's ultimately what we have to do, right?
Awesome. Thank you very much for coming in and taking the time to do this.
Yeah.
It's great information and it's great for people to hear too. With all due respect to the comment that there needs to be skin in the game before we get in the game, you guys have put, in my perspective, have put a ton of skin in the game in Rutland, in the city. You've invested in this space downtown already. That could be anywhere. That could not be in the city of Rutland, right? The Vermont Farmers Food Center is not the Rutland Farmers Food Center, right? It is. Luckily, we get the benefit from that. But you're investing in the community. You're using the resources here. You're putting back in. And I think we need to absolutely 100% show that support. I do think putting conditions, as to your suggestion, is probably a very smart idea to mitigate risk. But this isn't a blind leap of faith. It is a leap of faith, sure. We're investing in something just like with the buyouts. We're investing in businesses that may not be successful, whatever that happens to be. We're investing in our community by saying, hey, let's do a planning grant here, so to speak, and decide whether or not this is feasible. This feasibility study may come back and say it's not feasible, and that's okay. But what we're going to benefit as a city after that comes out is knowing why it's not feasible and what we need to do to make a change too. So we as a city do get a benefit from this. This isn't just giving money away. This is receiving information as well, which I'm sure that you'd be happy to share, right? Receiving information as well back saying, this is what we got out of the situation. We think we can go forward under these conditions and we can't go under these conditions. Is that right? Awesome. Thank you. Well, I support it 100%.
Alderman Grosso.
So, two things. I always usually vote with Alderman Davis. I've known her a long time, and she always has the best interest to the city. Alderman Gillum, who we were sworn in together a million years ago here, did not try to delay anything. But in the past, and having been on this board before, it was a fact that when the farmers market closed at 2 o'clock, you could roll up the streets of Rutland and close the stores. They brought people to Rutland, and you've heard me say for years, we need to bring people to Rutland. We need to get traffic in here. We need to bring people in. So I think if we're clear, the number is $32,500. It's a crapshoot. We don't know what's going to happen, but that's the total. That's it for tonight and for maybe forever. But here's what I heard. Alderman Dunches made a motion to fund $32,500 from the Zamias Fund, and the motion passed by 5-0. So that's 5 people in this room already passed the motion. And I'd like to call the question for a roll call vote.
Sure. All right, so we have the motion as stated before, $32,500 from the Zamias Fund toward the feasibility study.
We have to have a motion to call the question.
Yeah.
Right, are we amending that?
Well, you can't now because the question was called. So you have to either vote yes or no against the question.
We'd like to amend it, so we're going to look at it.
You all right with
Got
that?
it.
Still needs to be the amendment, I mean.
So quick, just, go ahead, Mike.
Motion to call
Would
the
you
question.
possibly consider withdrawing your motion so we can amend?
So we can amend it.
I thought we'd call the question, then make the motion. Call
Sounds
the
like we
question
don't.
to reconsider this. That's what I thought I was doing.
No, we already did that.
Alderman Grosso, I
parliamentarians
think
are-
that there is interest amongst the board in attaching the amendments as presented by Elizabeth. So if you were to withdraw the calling of the question,
So,
we could.
okay.
Thank you.
And now it sounds as though we do have an interest in adding an amendment to the original motion.
All right. So can I make the amendment? Awesome. Okay. Well, how about is there any, are we back on the table? Did we get that far?
Yes.
Okay.
This is-
We discussed it. Hey, listen.
Yep, we have
Still?
the original
This one's new to me.
motion. is
Okay,
up there now.
great. So I would like to amend the motion to, with the same funds, same amount of money, to include the stipulation that the phase, where'd Elizabeth go? I just want to confirm.
Phase 2 environmental assessment.
Phase 2 environmental assessment, and what was the second piece?
The site control.
And that the site control is a possibility.
And then the RA review.
And then the RA review,
Before we release the funds.
Before we release the funds. Thanks, guys. It's a team effort.
That was my original proposal.
I'm slightly unclear what the RA is reviewing.
Yeah, right.
That the phase 2 is complete and that they have control of the site.
Not whether to move forward, just those two.
Right, just those two things.
Yeah.
So the amendment would be that phase 2 is complete, that site control is in place, and the RRA's function would be to review and confirm that these things have occurred.
And just to clarify, he said, and we would accept that or approve that number. Could we please say the number out loud?
Yes, it would, so same number, $32,500 would be released pending the review of the RRA, confirming that phase 2 is complete and site control has been gained. Brennan?
Just one more.
You want
Seeking clarification. So the other piece I thought I heard was that the scope of work was going to be potentially adjusted based on the new circumstances. So is that something that we are also being asked to look at or not?
Does the motion include the M&S, specifically M&S, then it doesn't need to include that. It was just that if it was specifically included for the M&S proposal, that I didn't feel comfortable.
So what Greg brought to the board though was the M&S proposal.
Right.
So that's where I'm a little confused as to what we're actually going to spend $32,500 on. If we have to say.
Right, because the motion says to fund, so I don't know.
Okay.
We want to clarify what we're funding.
Yeah, what do we fund?
Yeah,
So we're-
should be the proposal.
So what we're funding, and Elizabeth, can you help us out here again? So what we want to fund, instead of the specific M&S proposal,
Is the scope of work
okay.
in the M&S proposal, and I'm fine with you adding the third condition that the specifics of how that gets accomplished be, a revised proposal is really what it is.
So not the current proposal, but the revised.
A revised proposal.
Okay,
And
great.
the double RA reviews it,
Yep.
and then we're off and running.
Getting this, Henry?
And you
Thank
report
you.
back to us on what you found.
So
So the amendment that you have proposed, Alderman Dunges, would be
Make that clear now.
that we will proceed with providing $32,500 in funding from the Zamias Fund for the scope of work feasibility study, only to be released upon review of the RA, which has confirmed that phase 2 is complete and that we have
Site control,
which will,
Second.
To clarify, it's, the work is doing this, is identifying the scope of work for the feasibility study, not the feasibility study itself.
Right.
I'm trying to understand.
Isn't that the same
I believe that's right.
Scoping out what you would do for the feasibility study versus accomplishing that and then returning to us the results of that, is what I'm trying to.
So Alderman Franco's asking a question of what we're funding, scope of work versus the feasibility and which is which.
Are you calling them one and the same, or are you looking at those as two different?
It's getting late, isn't it? So I want to be, so the scope of work that's in the M&S proposal is feasibility work?
Oh, I see, okay. So you're funding the work that's in your scope of work?
That's in
not
that, yeah.
creating the scope of work?
Right.
Got it.
very good. Any, Alderman Dunges?
No questions.
Okay. Any further discussion, debate, questions? Hearing and seeing none, we have a motion that has been seconded, or an amended motion that has been made and seconded. Would all those in favor please say aye?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Elizabeth.
Thank you guys very much for that work. This is huge, and we will work with you closely.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we are still under reports of standing committees. Alderwoman Davis, Finance Committee.
So the
report.
Finance Committee met October 7th at 5:30 PM. Present were Alderman Caruso, Dunges, and Chair Davis. Others present were Alderman DePoy, President Whitcomb, Neary, Clifford, Mayor Lair, DPW Commissioner Rotondo, Clerk Heck, Treasurer Markowski, Chief Lovett, Deputy Chief Mangan, and Commander Sheldon from the Police Department. The topic was the ARPA funds. The mayor reviewed his list that was presented to the board and stated that this was a starting place for discussion. The clerk began with his request to upgrade the IT infrastructure in the chambers, soundproofing the room, and digitalize land records. The DPW commissioner discussed his request for $2,500,000 for a water main replacement project, $750,000 for additional digester upgrades at the wastewater treatment facility, $250,000 for truck sewer cleaning and/or sewer rehab replacement. Alderman Neary wanted to add to the list the underground utility work needed for Center Street. The fire department discussed the need for a new radio system at $250,000, SCBA equipment at $201,600, and thermal imaging cameras at $43,000. The police department discussed the kiosk upgrade needed for parking, that the ADA compliant police station was of need, to upgrade the north parking lot, and COVID payment for the department. The treasurer discussed the water, sewer, and parking meter funds, that they were in a negative balance, and was interested in the website city upgrade, or city website upgrade, excuse me. Recreation, Superintendent Peters was not present. She sent a memo looking to upgrade the Main Street Park gazebo, Godnick Adult Center, and a safe outdoor path. Also improvements to Meadow Street, White's, and Justin Memorial Parks. The committee just heard briefly from each of the department heads what they were looking for. It's kind of a in-motion kind of thing, as things may change as we move forward. We were given a cheat sheet on basically on how these funds could be used. They decided that the request, we would discuss the request one at a time, coming from the department heads. We will start with the clerk's office. We will try to help determine that the use of the ARPA funds is appropriate for the request. I have talked with Clerk Heck to see possibly if we could have a meeting with the clerk's office on the 25th of October. To begin that, he's just wants to touch base, make sure he has everything in order, and then he'll get back to me and I will schedule that meeting. So this is for information only, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Alderwoman Davis. Are there any questions, comments?
So there is, Alderman Franco had mentioned, would there be opportunities for more requests to be added, and the answer is yes, as we move through the process. Okay.
Very good.
So would you like me to do pension deficit?
Sure thing.
Mary's still here, that's good. So we had a pension deficit committee following the pension committee. And I included this in your packet, and it's probably confusing, but it basically is that the cities, we currently have a funding policy, and those are listed, I'm not going to read them to you at the top, 1 through 4, which we have pretty well stuck to. The mayor has put additional money in the budget. We try to increase it by 1.50% every year. Last year, we certainly lowered that amount, basically due to COVID, as you all know, trying to soften the blow to a lot of taxpayers who are having some financial difficulties as well. Then we heard the evaluation of the funding policy, so it just kind of went through where we were in the years of 18, 19, 20, and 21. And then he gave some what-if projections. So evaluation of cash flow, the pension board has determined that we base our assumptions on a 7% return. So these are based on a 7% return. And then the graph is without a 7% return. These first page here talks about where we are with funding. As you'll see, one column, the left column, money's going in, and the other column, money's, it's greater than what we're putting out, simply because he categorized that a lot of the employees were working past their retirement age. So they were continuing to contribute to the pension. And then the last page is when, as Mary had spoke to sooner, no new employees are admitted to the pension they go under VEMR's. So there's an original contribution schedule and then an FY22 modified. So modified means if we make some additional cuts to what we're funding, if we don't keep up with that 1.5%. So originally, we should be out of the defined benefit by 2052. And if we make any other adjustments to that 1.5%, we would be out of the benefit in 2053. The problem is funding, because this is currently on the tax rate, with the employee certainly puts in their contribution, but we have to put in that employee contribution. And the impact is significant to the taxpayers of this city. But it is a responsibility that we have to fund that pension and make sure that those benefits are there for folks going out through 2052, 2053, or whatever at that point in time. So that's the discussion before the pension committee. A couple of the ideas came up of a 1% tax, or using, if cannabis does locate in the city, to use a tax percent from the sale of cannabis to put toward pension funding. So we encourage any ideas to that effect. And it's not that this committee will meet a lot. I think when we're ready to know if cannabis does come in and what we're looking at, we'll have that discussion. And then if we're willing to institute a 1% to help fund the pension, we'll have that discussion.
Thank you, Alderman Davis. Alderman Dunges?
Just a quick question, so I understand, that 1% tax will be to replace the funding from the taxpayer or to fill the gap in funding?
Well, I think it would fill the gap,
It would
so
fill the
there was
gap.
no
So it'd be
additional
in
burden.
addition,
Right.
A new tax on
Right.
something like cannabis.
Right.
To fill the gap until such a time.
Right, because I think, and I apologize, when we met in the pension committee, it shows that the employee, the contribution that'll be budgeted is well over $2 million. You know, and currently, a penny raises $100,000. That's what's going on to the tax rate. So what we'd like to do is be able to, well, raise as much revenue as we can, certainly to fund the underfunded, and then to add to and relieve some of that tax rate if possible. Absolutely.
Tweet that.
Right.
Scale tips.
Right. Thank you.
Alderman Davis. Any other questions, comments? Hearing is seeing none. We're on to Public Works. Alderman Clifford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. DPW committee met on September 29th at 5:30 PM. Members present were myself, Alderman Dunges, Alderman Neary, and Alderman DeFoy. Others present were Commissioner Rotundo, Chief Operator from the wastewater plant, Bob Protovansky, Alderman Talbot, Alderman Whitcomb, City Treasurer Mary Markowski. First topic was regarding the 4 and 7 study grants referred by Alderman Neary. Alderman Neary referred to the minutes of the September 20th board meeting regarding a traffic study for Route 4 and Route 7 or other city streets to include sidewalks, etc. Finding a funding source for a study, $40,000 to $60,000 range, plus the 20% match. That application is due at the end of November. Alderman Neary explained that this grant application is due at the end of November this year, so it is important that if we proceed with the grant, that it's important that we point out what specifically we want analyzed in the study, plus the cost. Alderman Dunn just asked if pedestrian counts would be included in the study. Alderman Neary said yes, the study would look at everything. Alderman Neary brought up the question as to whether we wanted to include Rutland Town or not. Chairman Clifford pointed out that the 20% match would need to be approved by the mayor. Treasurer Markowski stated that the city does not budget for grants. Alderman Neary explained that this is a competitive grant and there was a lot of interest within our region, and I asked that the subject stay in committee, and it was agreed that Alderman Neary and Commissioner Rotundo would work on the grant application and come back to the committee for further discussion. Second topic brought to the committee by Alderman DePoy was in regards to our current septage rates. Alderman DePoy voiced concern that our current septage rates were not as competitive as other communities and wanted to bring to the committee's attention. Alderman DePoy stated that it appears the local septic haulers have increased their rates to customers, creating a large profit for haulers due to Rutland's lower rates. Alderman DePoy was asked if he had done any extensive research as to why local haulers have increased their rates to customers, whether that be increased fuel costs or labor shortages. Alderman DePoy stated examples based off personal professional experience, which the committee agreed there was really now hard evidence as to why local haulers had to increase the price so much. Commissioner Rotundo and Chief Operator Protovansky, there we go, Protovansky asked when the last increase was, in which they stated it was 2019. Commissioner Rotundo then reviewed data on historical septics and sludge rates over the past 5 years. He also stated that based on Alderman DePoy's referral, they have reviewed the current rates, the trending market, and wish to make a motion to the committee to increase septic rates, sludge rates, and institute rates for brewery waste. Commissioner Rotundo suggested a rate increase of 2 cents for septic and sludge, resulting in a septic rate of 95 cents a gallon, sludge rate of, that was it?
It's actually 9.5 cents.
9.5 cents, okay. The commissioner also suggested instituting a brewery waste of 15 cents a gallon, as brewery waste is much higher strength than domestic rate, with a BOD of anywhere between 7,000 and 30,000 milligrams per liter, opposed to a domestic waste that typically has a BOD of 300. Commissioner Rotundo also went into detail on some revenue projections that with the rate changes that can be found, and I believe everyone got a copy of that in their packets. So Alderman DePoy made a motion to set septic rates at 0.095 a gallon, the sludge rates at 0.105 a gallon, and the brewery waste rate at 0.15 a gallon. The motion was approved unanimously, and the rate change would be effective December 1st, 2021, and I so move.
Second. Okay, we have a motion, it's been seconded. Is there any discussion or debate on this? Alderman DePoy.
So really quickly, we did have that in that packet that I think it was distributed, that the septic rates that are accepted at other, what we would call competing, I guess, septic waste plants, and we, even with the new rates, would still be well below most of the others that are anywhere near our facility. So projections on revenue would bring the revenue up to help our sewer and water funds, I mean sewer fund especially, I guess, but everybody refers to it as a water bill, so your water bill could have a significant impact. This could have a significant impact on what we pay for our water and our sewer rates in the future if our acceptance of the septage remains about the same. If the same volume coming in, we'll see an increase in revenue. And we're still below our competing other septic waste plants. So I think this is a good move for us, and I think it'll help the ratepayers.
Thank you, Alderman DePoy. Alderman Dunges?
Just to add on to that, the incoming septage that we take now puts us, I mean, doesn't put an undue strain, but does put a strain on our systems. So by raising these rates, we can use those funds to keep those systems operating properly as well. So I'll support it as well.
Good, thank you. All right, if there's no further discussion or debate, we have a motion, and it has been seconded to accept the rates as presented that will take effect December 1st, 2021. Would all those in favor please say aye?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Just wanted to follow up on the first topic. So I did meet with Commissioner Rotundo. We formulated a work scope, and we're working on the application now. So I'll get with Alderman Clifford to schedule that meeting, and we'll send it to the full board.
Great.
Good, thank you.
So, if I may, just in an alderman capacity or a planning capacity for the grant?
For the grant itself, for this specific one that we're working on?
Right.
As alderman, yeah, yeah.
I didn't know if there was anything at regional planning that was available type thing that you were
Oh,
working on.
sure, yeah. No, that's more the Amtrak one, yeah.
Very good, thank you. All right, this brings us to Committee of the Whole, which was passed out to each of you. I apologize in advance for the spelling, the grammar, and that I moved between the past and present.
You don't have spell check?
This was edited last minute, I don't want to lie to you. So, this is Committee of the Whole. This is October 5th, 2021. This is RRA contract look-in. Members present were all of us. Others present, Gordon, Andy Paluch of the RRA, Chris Sartori, Treasurer Markowski, Mayor Allaire, Gary Spalding, and Stephen Blocks. The meeting was called to order at 5:30 p.m. So the meeting began with Brendan Duffy, Executive Director of the RRA, providing a comprehensive review of scope of work performed by the RRA over the previous 3 years. Brendan began by speaking to grant administration. He highlights a strong working relationship with stakeholders in the state of Vermont. He also discusses the history of the RRA and grant administration and the way in which they target the grants. He provided an overview of a number of grants applied for and received over the previous 3 years, as the total amount of money that's been managed as a result of the grants that have been awarded. Brendan detailed particular grants that have been awarded over the past 3 years. He discusses grants the RRA anticipates for the future, which involve infrastructure, transportation, Heartland development at the former CSJ site, and the grant funding related to Center Street initiatives. Brendan then moves to discussing jobs and grant list development. He outlines business incentives that have been developed and implemented through the RRA. He highlights how the RRA was able to utilize money set aside for the buyout program to help support local businesses impacted by COVID, and how they continue to work with the Treasurer's Office to support businesses. He spoke to the grant list and the challenges were presented by the pandemic. He highlights that 15 businesses have been recipients of the buyout program and 3 businesses have received wastewater incentive. He speaks to housing development. He notes that hotel initiatives for the former Berwick site, which appeared promising, dissolved as a result of COVID. He notes that he would still like to see a downtown hotel in the future. He discusses the work done in conjunction with local agencies to address housing and highlights the positive relationship. Also in to the board, how much work has been done on local housing partners is focused on low-income housing and the challenges that exist around market rate housing. Moving forward, there'll be work done to form a pilot program to address market rate housing in the local community. He highlights this being an important focus as it relates to the regional marketing initiative. He also notes that there's an RFP outstanding for the TIF district development project, which we're talking about tonight. Brendan discussed ongoing work and discussion related to the ARPA funds, and it is currently ongoing among the RRA in committee. He discussed city-owned property program, a successful endeavor that brought multiple properties back on the tax rolls. Brendan then moves to blighted properties and notes that this was initially the top priority of the RRA and what actions could be addressed to address this issue. He details the history and functionality of the blighted property program for the committee. He indicates that he believes the blighted property work has been a successful enforcement tool as well as a substantial benefit for the neighborhoods. Brendan notes that residential tax stabilization programs is a complementary element to the blighted property program. He describes the challenges that stem from the building and zoning office of the previous year and substantial turnover. He spoke to the challenges that exist within blighted property work by providing examples throughout the city that have been particularly challenging. He discusses his views. He discussed where he views opportunity with the blighted property program, highlighting the tax sale of certain properties. He also highlights the board's success in housing redevelopment in previous years. Brendan discusses the role the RRA will play to continue to partner with and promote blighted property program and housing redevelopment. From there, he moves to how planning is associated with elements of the RRA contract. Brendan identifies the RRA's role in planning process as being a business-friendly advocate, noting that views the role as being the voice of local businesses. He speaks to the board of the relationship with the Planning Commission and feels that it has improved. He discussed the board ongoing work related to city zoning and bylaw rewrites. He speaks specific planning initiatives that the RRA have been involved in over the previous years. He then discusses with the board his vision for continued work on the gateways. Brendan discusses with the board the reports that have been conducted and completed over the previous years and there's corresponding implications. He shared with the board items that he feels will be relevant as we move forward as a city going forward. He shares with the board how to engage with relevant city partners regarding planning. Brendan speaks to the city master plan, acknowledging how it can be useful, it does contain limitations. He highlights his desire to see Center Street redesigned over the coming years. Brendan highlights the likely involvement of the RRA and ARPA funding over the coming years. Mayor Allaire speaks to the board regarding the importance of the contract review and cites that the administration has a strong working relationship with the RRA. The mayor notes that this is as a member of the board when they work to restructure the focus of the RRA and creating focus that allow projects to be realized. Mayor Allaire states that he believes the RRA currently fulfilling the contractual agreement. Alderman Clifford asked if the RA just focuses on the gateways that come into the downtown or where the roads enter the city from the town. Brennan cites that the focus on gateways was put into place to focus very specifically on entrances to the downtown. Alderman Clifford notes that there are blighted properties that exist within the gateways but are outside of where the current RA focus has been. Brennan cites examples of intersection 4 and 7, and that does not meet an example of blighted structure at this current time. Brennan notes that it is difficult to enforce. Alderwoman Davis shares with the board historical evolution of the RA and how moving the RA into City Hall has been of benefit. Alderwoman Davis speaks to the work done by the RA, and she believes it is a job well done. She notes that she believes the focus should be on what the RA should focus on moving forward. Alderman Gillum discusses the evolution of the RA and projects that have been perceived as failures may actually have been beneficial in that they helped guide the city in approaching redevelopment differently moving forward. Alderman Dunges notes that he is a representative to the RA. He spoke to how we potentially capture individuals moving out of urban areas to rural areas and what could the RA do in facilitating that. He also asked how we could capture the housing and business development that's now available in the state of Vermont. Alderman DuPois notes to the board much of what was discussed in the study has come or is coming to fruition and details examples. Alderman Grusso shares with the board his historical perspective on what he views as being successes of the RA. He also discusses the importance of building a good image for Rutland and help growing the community. Alderman Neary poses the question of what the RA is good at and not good at, and what is the right focus of the city going forward. He cites the need to bring larger projects to the fruition and that the status quo is no longer good enough. Alderman Neary suggests if the contract is to remain in place, what alterations can be made to how the RA reports back the work it engages in. Alderman Franco shares with the board how he professionally has to engage his clients and provide them with updates and compares the process with the RA does the same. He shares with the board that he does not see the contract reflective of where we are currently as a community and expresses does not feel that the contract is working. He requests detailed information quantifying what has been achieved. He cites that he was surprised to see the current RA structure as he believes is not consistent with other municipalities. Alderwoman Davis indicates that the newer aldermen do not have the historical view of the RA and suggests that she has no problem looking at the contract. She highlights that the component of the RA to exist outside of city politics that can be played within a municipality. Alderwoman Davis expresses that she believes the RA has realized real achievement and expresses she does not view the RA as having failed. Alderwoman Davis makes a motion and is seconded by Alderman Clifford to refer the RA contract to Community and Economic Development to discuss the focus of the contract going forward. The vote passes unanimously, and I so move.
Second.
Is there any discussion or debate on that motion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Alderman Dunges submits to the RA a handful of questions he would like considered for C&E committee meeting regarding the focus of the RA contract. Brennan requests that question suggestions be sent to the chair of that committee, which is Alderman Talbot. Alderman Talbot inquires as to why the RA are not city employees. Alderman Gillum shares with the board historical context that brought the RA to be established in the way in which it is. Alderwoman Davis shares the future information with the board regarding also shares information with the board regarding historical context of the RA. Andy Pluge speaks to the board, recommending the idea of soliciting community partners to help identify ways necessary value can be created. Stephen Blocks shares his thoughts and experienced members of the committee and RA and what he hopes to see going forward. Alderman Davis moves to adjourn. Alderman DuPois seconds. The meeting adjourns to 7:30 p.m. Alderwoman Davis.
So, if I may, I think there's an elephant in the room, and I think we need to discuss the elephant in the room. And that is investor initiative meetings that have been happening with the chambers. So, I think we all have a vested interest in this community, and we're all elected to do so. But we're not elected to participate in meetings that are unknown to other community members, committee members, or your chair, who states he was unknown. And I have a problem with it when it turns around the discussion that's happening in these investor initiative meetings are the same discussion that we had in this committee of the whole meeting with the double RA sitting up there talking about its initiatives or defending, in my position, my statement, defending its position. So I think we all have something to offer to this board. It's not just a small number. We all have some kind of specialty to offer to this board, and we work better when we work as a unit. We don't have to agree. We don't have to get along all the time, but we do have to work together. I spoke with Lyle Jepson. And I informed them that I thought this discussion belonged in City Hall, in Community Development Committee, with collaboration of the chambers and the RRA, but not in small groups. And I'm not looking for anybody to defend themselves. I'm just stating for my purpose that I think this is, when you look at the players, it's not appropriate. My 2 cents.
Alderman Davis, Alderman Dungeon.
So I have a question for city attorney, and then I just need some clarification. Happy to discuss it. With all due respect to Alderwoman Davis, the business that I run is investing in properties. I do that in meeting with Stephen Box, having those conversations about the skills that I gained here in the city, the banks that I talked to, the organizations that I worked with, the contractors that I use. It came up that maybe we could do that as a bigger group, because as investors, we want to put into the city. As a representative of the city, I am very well aware of open meeting laws, and I would never discuss something that's in committee with other people from that committee in those meetings, but I do know that publicly I can talk about those committee meetings that were discussed with anybody who's not in that committee in the room, right? There's certain things. So my question is to the city attorney, is that, am I breaking any rules by being in meetings that are privately held, that are not run by the city, to discuss things that aren't in committee?
The main concern, or the main consideration would be whether there's a quorum of the public body at any of these meetings, and the smaller committees do constitute a public body, so it's not that there'd be 6 people from this board necessarily in the same room discussing a topic, but it could be as little as 3 people that could make up a committee, one of the committees that we have. And I actually, I had the chair had asked me the question, so I was trying to find, there's actually pretty good guidance in the statute itself. Let me just see. Well, I don't know if I can find it this quickly, but it's not necessarily just business that's currently before the committee, but it's business that could be expected to come before the public body. So it does get, it's kind of dicey to be able to predict that. But certainly you on your own, without any other members of the Board of Aldermen, can have actually 2 of you could have any conversation that you would like, and you wouldn't run afoul of the open meeting laws. If there are 3 of you and you happen to be on the same committee, and it could ostensibly be a topic of that committee at some point, then it potentially could become a violation. But again, it's I think just making a good faith effort that if you're not doing it intentionally, hiding in the back alleys, having a meeting, that's more so. And the remedy would be to basically, one of the remedies would be to, 1, tell everybody what you were talking about, and then 2, obviously going forward, have those meetings, warn those meetings and have them in an open.
And just to follow up on that, for my part in that meeting, I absolutely agree that that's the transparency that we want to have. I'm 100% about transparency. I will say, just for your own understanding, that in those meetings that we had, there was nothing discussed that would come before the board, or that was before the board at any point when all of us were there, or even when we weren't. Talking about financing my own properties, or talking about the banks that we use to finance, would certainly fall within that. The pieces of it are this is a group of people who are all really interested in investing in a certain type of housing project, whether that's low income or market rate or whatever it happens to be. We're all invested, trying to figure out where we want to invest, whether I want to buy something downtown or buy something on Washington Street, which, turns out that's the direction I want it to head. But in those situations, I think it's absolutely important to make sure city business stays within the city, and I am 100% on board with that, and would not perform otherwise, but I can see why there may have been some confusion. So
I think, if I may, it's very difficult to take the hat on, take the hat off and put it back on. Because people don't look at you. When they look at you, they see Alderman Mike Dunges.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I may, I participate on many boards, and I try very hard to take the hat off and
Right.
run. And
Right.
always try to
I have the minutes from the meeting, and I think that's where some of my concerns came from, because they are certainly city issues and issues that the city has made investments in. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity.
And I did find that the email that has the exact wording from the statute, and the language is that a quorum of the public body can meet, quote, provided that the public body does not discuss specific business of the public body that, at the time of the exchange, the participating members expect to be business of the public body at a later time.
Right.
So again, it's sort of an intention, you know, if it just happenstance that you were talking about something that later becomes, you know, business of the body, then of course you couldn't have predicted that. If it's something that is not technically in committee, but either there's an intention to bring it to committee, or bring it to a committee, or, you know, you have a reasonable expectation that would be where it would have to end up going, then that's where you should be extra careful about who's in the room and, you know, whether the meeting's been warned.
Excuse me.
So, forgive, I'm at a loss, so I wasn't privy to those minutes. So am I she's left the room. Am I understand that something like this did in fact happen? There was board members discussing things that it wasn't necessarily, or wasn't warned? Is that correct? I'm sorry. So I guess I was at a loss. So does that in fact happened? There were board members that met that apparently there was not a quorum or a meeting that was posted?
I only have minutes from September 27th. I don't know how many other meetings occurred. I believe there was another one planned for October 25th. That's all I know.
Okay. As long as it's, you know, I'm not going to go through this right now, but if there's another meeting planned, I would suggest that it's warned appropriately, and or you know, the concerns that or the facts that the city attorney had laid out be that are made aware now, you know, are understood.
Yeah, they definitely are understood, and just for everybody's edification here, there is only a quorum at part of one meeting. I did not go to any other meetings and don't plan to go to any other. So if the issue is with, so I also showed up late to this meeting. So the issue is with part of one meeting that was the first one and really pitched to us as this investors group. So hard to make that strong link for the first meeting, and there was no other quorum post first meeting. So I think the issue's already resolved itself. I definitely appreciate what you bring up about the right partners being in the right room and definitely being conscious of those rules. So I think we have, and I think those notes are very well understood.
So just, if I could, real briefly, whenever anything like this is brought to my attention, I do take it very seriously. And as Attorney Bloomer alluded to, I reached out to him immediately and asked if he could review. And I think for those of you in the room who attended the meeting, I reached out to every one of you individually to ask, how did this evolve? What did you discuss? And I think as far as members of the board, I even discussed the way in which this could border upon a violation of open meeting law, in that I in no way perceived that there was any nefarious intent going into this. I think it actually just happened to be coincidental that people with the same interests, looking toward the same thing and had similar backstories, got together. But it is vital that we always maintain that awareness of, if we are meeting and we are discussing something that could become part of a discussion in a subcommittee or the full committee, the full board, we have to warn it. We have to go through the appropriate channels. I appreciate this being out in the open and us discussing it. It's a learning experience, and I think we're all here to do the best we can by the city. And going forward, we'll make sure to warn it appropriately, that we'll take that extra step before meeting and potentially discussing anything that could be perceived as city business or future city business. So thank you, everyone. And thank you, Attorney Bloomer, for looking into it. On this issue?
On this issue, any chance I can speak up better?
Yeah.
I attended one of those meetings, not the other one because I was watching my kid in Bennington play a soccer game. It was well worth skipping that meeting. Alderwoman Davis threw you a red herring here. Stephen Box had come to the mayor's office, had come to Brennan's office to talk about this very issue. And he was told to go talk to that person and go talk to that person. Well, so Stephen Box, as you know, has come to a number of meetings, and he came out and talked to me. I said, hey, what can I do for you? I had this idea for an investor navigator service. Maybe that's something we can talk about. He talked to Andy Paluch and said, hey, what are you doing? Oh, and he talked about his work. The red herring here is that this meeting happened. Yes, there was a mistake by 3 people who wanted to engage in a project and work on something and try to get more investments in the city. Shame on them. They'll learn. They've been in office for, what, 5 months now?
8.
8 months. They've been in office 8 months. They've learned. But the work that needs to happen, and so we'll be more careful. We won't break open meeting laws. But the red herring is that the meeting happened. There was nothing nefarious about it. Stephen Box tried to get this work done by the city. Went to the mayor first, went to the RA second, and did not find the avenues of help that he was looking for. He found it in other people. I was glad to help, and I'll do it again. Thank you.
So if I may, Mr. Chairman, I don't think there's any red herring. I think there was a lack of transparency. Not intentional, but there was. And I think Mr. Box is a member of the public, can meet with anyone he wants as often as he likes. There's a different rule for those who sit in these chairs, me included.
Lyle, to this issue?
Please, thank you. Not quite sure where to start, other than to say I'm going to pass this around to you, and I know you all want to go home. And in this, I think there's some concern about the role of the Chamber in Economic Development. If there aren't enough of those, I have absolutely more. I would encourage you to take that home and look at the types of things that we're doing at the Chamber in Economic Development. It all comes down to regional marketing, and I'm glad you're not giving away all the Zamias funds, because I have to come back and see you, because we continue that initiative. And the data that I'm going to bring you is going to show you that Rutland City is the major beneficiary of the regional marketing initiative, Rutland City. And we can tell you the number of people that have moved here because of our concierge service, because we keep close track of that. The issue that comes up every single time is housing. When they call us and they say, we can't find a place to live. So just to let you know of some other meetings that have been happening, there was a group of us that met through our policy committee that started way back in November of 2020, and we met regularly with the Housing Authority and others to try and crack this nut, which is how do we get more workforce, affordable housing, and market rate housing. Our goal at that point, because the legislature was supposedly going to get all this money, we thought, well, let's get some money for our region here, and let's get money for incentivizing landlords so that they can do a little bit more. They have old properties, they know it, they want to do good work, and we wanted to get some money for them. Well, that didn't work out. The legislature sent the money in a different direction, which is fine. It's going to go into housing, and that's great. Next, we learned there might be a developer coming in. There was going to be in Rutland town. And so we began to work towards that direction. And what could we do that way. And then that kind of fell through. That developer may still be looking for property, which would be wonderful. Anywhere in Rutland County would be fine with me. And so, just going through the scenario, we again met with, well, I met with some business leaders because my goal was to prove that we had enough demand so that that person or those people that were trying to get that housing development would stay. We have demand. And I would love to think that a developer would find another spot someplace because it's critical to our regional marketing initiative and critical to our businesses so that they can get people to work. And you know that people might as well be taking down those signs that say help wanted because everybody's got help wanted, but their signs are everywhere. So then along comes Mr. Box, and he said, I'd love to sit down with some people, and could we just use your conference room? I said, absolutely, I'll even buy you pizza. So I bought them pizza, they came in, and we talked. We decided, and they decided, because it was so important that they wanted to do it again. Devin decided it really wasn't in his area of expertise. He was going to go off and do something else. But there were a couple people that decided to stay. And we decided to invite a couple people who were developers, who lived in the city, to talk about their process and how things went. We met again. And they decided, well, we'd like to keep doing this. We'd like to bring in bankers and talk about different ways to do financing and so forth. Excellent. So we had a couple things we were talking about, including the city's website and how that might be helpful. And Michael was there and said, we're working on that. Things are moving right along. It's looking good. Then Brennan holds meetings once a month. I don't know if you know that, but of the executive directors. And the executive directors, the planning commission, and me, and Andrew's there, and Nikki. We meet once a month to share. So at that meeting, I said, we were talking about housing. We were talking about the houses that Andrew's going to now work on, those 9 units, I think. And I said, hey, by the way, this group is meeting, and they're talking about housing, which is the same thing everybody's talking about right now. And Brendan said, well, I didn't know about that. I said, well, okay, I'm telling you now, and we could talk about that. He said, well, can I join that group? Brendan's going to come next Monday night, 6 o'clock, the chamber. If you want to come, 6 o'clock, but call ahead, because I'm getting pizza. And I want to make sure there's enough. And it is called the Investors Initiative. And it's just trying to come up with a way to get people to want to invest. I sent the minutes to Brennan so that he'd know what the first 2 meetings were all about. And then Sharon sent me an email and said, hey, what's this meeting all about? And I sent you, I think, a copy of one of the minutes, the latest one, so you can see what the agenda was for the coming meeting. And so I don't think there's any secrecy going on or subversion going on. I think everybody's working together. Hence telling Brennan, I mean, I could have not told Brennan and said, don't come to the meeting, but please come to the meeting. We want everybody to be there if they want to work on this initiative. It's so essential to our businesses. It is important to bring up issues of quorums and all that kind of stuff because it's absolutely true. You don't want somebody to come later on and say, you shouldn't have made that decision because this person was in that room and they were talking about that. Great conversation to have. Thank you very much. But let's focus on the issue, which is we got to do something about housing. We're going to keep working on that. And if there are other committees that want to invite us to come and talk about housing, great. As a matter of fact, we were out in Fairhaven the other night talking to their economic development group, and they're talking about the same thing. You know what they were talking about? Their website. They don't like their website because they can't get the information on there that they need, and so we're going to work with them on their website. So, same issues everywhere. Thank you for bringing it up. Thank you for being welcoming when I come back to talk about the Regional Marketing Initiative and $16,000 that I might be asking.
It may not be there.
I know, that's what I'm hearing tonight. I was going, I don't know.
Not be there.
Having formerly been in the printing business, who printed this?
Rutland Herald.
Rutland Herald. I like to thank the many city organizations. I had to quit the Chamber of Commerce when I was given 2 months to live in 2005. I couldn't afford the $750 a month or a year dues. I had a 23-year career in printing of the Rec and Parks Department. Wouldn't give me the clues to the Mr. Pumpkin because I wasn't a sanctioned paper. I don't know what that meant. I sent letters to the city several times from the state of Vermont stating that I was a legal publication and you go to a Pennsylvania company, you go to a Killington company. I paid my taxes through to next year. My taxes for property owning were paid through to next year. My company's closed. 12 people are out of work. It was 24 at one time. But I'd like to thank you guys for all the times in my 40 years of experience of how to market this community. And it was a publication that went from Granville, which is in the ADI. What's an ADI, you guys always ask me? It's the Area of Dominant Influence. And people from Granville come, live, work every day in Rutland. And people from Crown Point, and people from New Haven, and people from Rochester and Randolph. You meet them in doctor's offices. And I tell these stories and tell these stories, and the Rutland Herald got the business, and the Mountain Times got the business, and everybody got it but Sam, and Sam's out of business. 05701 was our corporate zip code. Ask the other two what their corporate zip codes were. But nice job, by the way, really nice job, but it's the things that kind of bug me because, like I said, I got 12 very good people that are, I hope, found something to do, and I'm unemployed because jobs like this were not offered to me. Events like this were not told to me. Like Alderman Davis is right. Boy, it's great to open up another publication and see, gee, Rec and Parks had a such and such event. Did anybody get a call on that? No, we didn't. We didn't get an email on that. Oh, so we never existed. After 23 years of paying taxes in the city, my paper didn't exist by a lot of city and quasi-city organizations. And I needed to get that out, and thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Russo.
Good with me?
Thank you,
Okay.
Lyle. There's nothing else on this piece. We do have a couple things left on the agenda. We are done with reports of standing committees. We have no reports of select committees. Reports of representatives, Alderman Savage, School Board, pages 22 to 24 of the packet. Is this submitted for information only? So.
I'll move to receive and place on file.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to receive and file, so it's been seconded. Would all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Petitions, letters, miscellaneous communication, we have nothing. I will entertain a motion to go into the Board of Control.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, it's been seconded. Would all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
Motion to circulate for signature.
I'll move to authorize the clerk to sign. No, I can't. Oh, I can't. That's right. We'll have to
Caruso had the
circulate.
proper motion to circulate.
Second.
Circulate.
Second.
Okay, so the motion to circulate.
I made a
signatures,
tomato.
Seconded. Would all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. All right.
Has the restaurant been sold?
Must be.
Has the restaurant been sold?
Yes,
It's in the process of being sold.
it's a good operator, so you're not gonna have any problems. He's the one who bought the other two in Ludlow. Now he's buying the other one here. So he's a good operator.
You smooth operator?
Smooth operator.
All right.
Clean
I
operator.
wanted to know.
That's a good song.
He also owns the cleaner downtown here. He just did all that work there too.
That's being circulated.
One on,
Right here, yeah. He's a good operator.
All right, so that is being circulated for signature, so I'll entertain a motion to go out of the board.
So moved.
second.
Motion's been made, it's been seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. We are under unfinished business. Is there any?
Select committees, you went over that real quick and I didn't get to do my little report, just to warn the public that the Solid Waste District has a new website. All our minutes and budgets and everything are on there for your review. Also, you can purchase your permits, all your other stuff that you need to get to the transfer stations, they're all there, and the new rules. We will no longer do paper to the clerk. We're going to do a link on our site, so if people need to get the minutes or anything like that, you just click on there and it'll bring you right to the new site and get all the information you need. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderman. All right, so we are under unfinished business. Is there any unfinished, Alderman Caruso?
Yes, first of all, fellow members, I've been plagued with, diagnosed with what they call cluster headaches, but I'm also think there's other things. I'm going to be meeting other specialists, but it's a pain that you, like nothing else you've ever had in your whole side of your face, and it's like a seizure, and that is one of the reasons I had to close the company too, was you can't be on the computer or whatever, and the seizures go on 5-6 times a day. I'm waiting for one to happen anytime, but I took some meds before I left. One of the things that I just want to bring up is during this time that I had said to the Herald interview I was going to go home and retire and work on things, I'm home sleeping a lot, taking medicines and going to doctor's appointments. in March, we approved through Jim Rotundo this antiquated fiber optic thing by Consolidated Communications. And sure, yeah, go ahead, we do a lot of that. And then we approved a wireless one. I don't know either company. I don't have anything to do with them. Believe me, I'm very poor and unemployed now. But these guys came in and they butchered my trees, cut people's trees to the ground, and the city arborist, who's a licensed certified arborist, and his assistant told me they cut trees that are owned by the city wrongfully, without even asking. And Jim Rotundo, who's a busy guy and a great guy, has tried to see what we can do to make some of this right, because the professional arborists have told me my shrub, which is several hundred feet long, which I paid for, which I spent money over the 30 years I've had it, grooming it, I had permission from Central Vermont Public Service to put it in because there's wires there. Yep. And they came in and cut the tree like I've told you before, like a 7.847 went through it. And the arborists say that now these missing limbs are going to break because the upper ones are not there to help with snow. So what gets me going is, it was a couple of Thursdays ago, at 5 in the morning, I left my house to go to Dartmouth emergency room. And I knew I was going to be admitted for 3 to 5 days. And I get a call just as I'm pulling in the yard at whatever time it was, 7, whatever. Sam, you going to be home tomorrow? No. Oh, good. We've got a guy from Asplin Tree who wants to come up and see what his men did to your trees. And so unfortunately, I'm going to be admitted into Dartmouth. He says, great, I get the day off and go to play golf. I'll call you another time. So of course, I got him in my cell phone, called him several times, doesn't return my call. There's another guy, okay, Andy, lives in town. I'm not bothering to call him because he was nothing but a wise guy while he was at the house. All right, I'll do this and we'll do that. We'll cut all your trees to the ground. No, you won't, because we're still working on the easements. Even CV doesn't know if they had the right to go through my property back 40 years ago before I owned it. And then the other part of this is that Andy, I can't think of his name, it was Andy, I can't remember his name. He hasn't returned my calls. And in the world of business, somebody doesn't return your calls, you're a scumbag. And I think if I'm being treated like a scumbag as a resident, a potential customer of theirs, he also knows I'm on the board of Aldermen, okay? And Mr. Rice knows I am too. He said he's a city resident. So if you treat me like a scumbag, you're treating my fellow members, because we can all vote together. If we all vote together, we obviously agree together, you know? And I made a motion, or wanted to make a motion, to say, hey, we gave them a permit. They came in and butchered a lot of people's trees, including city trees. And then Matt says, well, let's have them come in and we'll have a committee of the whole or a little meeting and talk to them. Well, it's been 6 weeks. The snow is going to fly. They won't return my calls. I want to make the motion to suspend their permit of installing that thing right now and have them come in and see us if they want to continue working on it. And I will tell you, Jim Rotundo has concerns too about the flagging company. People almost getting run over, cars almost coming together. It was a shod job, a roughshod job, whatever. You don't want to return my calls. You don't want to answer to my fellow members of the Board of Aldermen. You haven't made any attempt to come in 6 weeks. Let's stop your contract. I think we have a right, and I'm pretty sure that we can suspend that contract, that installation, until they've come in and answered to this board as to why they did the stuff they did and why they're treating us the way we are. So I make a motion to suspend the consolidated fiber optic project immediately, pending a meeting with them and the Board of Aldermen.
I'll second for debate.
All right, we have a motion, it's been second for debate. See a number of hands deploy.
So if I can make an amendment to your motion, and the amendment would simply be require them to come in by a certain date. And if they don't, then we suspend. Can we amend that to that and say, look, guys, we need to talk, you need to get in here, and we're offering a carrot. If not, it's the stick, and that's the date of suspending as you are asking for. So I would just like to amend your motion as such.
I have a problem with the amendment because it was brought up a few meetings ago, 3 meetings ago, to have them come in and talk to us. I brought it up the last meeting. And the little caveat is I'm looking out the window at these trees all the time, and this is a stress factor because I'm scared to death. if they want to sue me, I'm in trouble. I don't have the money to defend myself, and I certainly don't have the money to sue them. So let's sit down like gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, professional people. Also, and this isn't about Sam too, like go look at the trees at the corner of North Street Extension where Paul, they're gone. The guy, they went to the door and said, we're taking your trees down. We're the city of Rutland, and they aren't, and they weren't, and they had no right to do that. And this gentleman lost all his trees. And that's why I don't know, Alderman DuPoy, why we need to give him any more time.
So, if I may, Sam, and maybe I misunderstood you, because you did bring it up, and I seconded the motion, and I think President Whitcomb was going to set up that meeting, but there was some discussion, maybe a week or two, or next meeting, whenever, afterwards, where we had brought it up, but you had said that they had reached out to you, and you were in discussion, and I think that's why it went silent. Not because we dropped the ball. I think we said, okay, apparently there's a conversation going on with you, so let's wait and see what happens. So that's why I think the amendment's appropriate, because obviously they didn't follow through with you. They didn't come and show up and give you any resolution. So I think we're back to the original request to have them come in. And I would support at least having them come in and then see where we go from there.
It's kind of funny because you're right. There was a quick time there. I thought there was a resolution. One of the guys called me an effing,
right,
you know what?
Right.
And I'm just standing on my lawn with a bottle of water going, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this to me? You know, it's all I said. And he said, you are. And then he went on and gave me more four-letter words about I'm a liar about what my trees are worth. And I have a very private backyard because of them, whatever. But the funny story was this I can't think of his name now, wouldn't return any of my calls. So we take Jim Rotundo's phone right on my front lawn and ask, what's his name, the assistant engineer.
Ted.
And he goes, and all of a sudden he goes, hey, how's it going, Jim? Jim says, well, I'm standing here with Sam Caruso. And I interrupt and say, oh, Alderman Sam Caruso, who's going to suspend your permit. Back then I said I'm going to do it.
Right.
I take that back. One other thing. He says, what are you doing? He said, I'm on my way to Burlington, this guy tells Jim. He goes, oh, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, I'm with Sam. I said, well, he's with Alderman Sam Caruso, whose friends are going to suspend your permit after what you've done in this neighborhood and what you've done in the city. And then we're going to find out who's a effing whatever, okay? So I'll be seeing you Wednesday morning after that Tuesday meeting. What would the Tuesday meeting have been? Labor Day.
Probably,
so that's when that happened.
Right.
He showed up in 3 minutes. And this other guy shows up in 3 minutes. Oh, we're on our way to Burlington. Oh, Alderman Caruso. I don't care if it's Alderman Caruso or whatever, but the point was, I just think that they're kind of peeing all over us, if you want to know, and by not doing anything. And they won't retake my calls. So I guess if I'm Mr. City, public taxpayer, which I am, I pay taxes and I'm current on all my taxes. I deserve a phone call. And your next door neighbor should, and all your neighbors should too.
Right.
But
I don't disagree.
So if they don't want to talk to me on the phone and they haven't set up a meeting to do that, let's shut them down so they can get back to work. They'll be here. They'd probably be here tomorrow morning if we had to. But pick a date then to amend. But how much longer can this go?
Give them to November 1st, our next meeting. That's what I was thinking.
If they haven't met with us by November 1st, that'll be the addendum to the motion.
Yeah, that's fair.
We'll pull the contract.
That's fair.
Because they're hooking like crazy. They got guys from all over New England up here hooking that thing up. They're trying to get that done.
I have to say, I was going down Grove Street this afternoon, and they have very young folks doing the traffic control. Well, they weren't paying any attention to the traffic. They were like, hey, what you doing? They were just kind of patting around with each other. I looked at the sign, I thought, is it slow or is it, stop or what am I supposed to do? They had not a clue. And the gentlemen who were working on the fiber optics there, they weren't paying any attention to these folks,
Chief Barron died.
So, it's kind of just an incredible, I don't know what it is. There doesn't seem to be a lot of rhyme or reason.
And I just think for a big project, we've been a great city. We've never had anything like this happen. I've asked other people, but they just came in, they just went to town, and then they got some people with some concerns, and they don't want to talk to us, and they've shunned the board president and this board. They've shunned a resident. If you want me to step outside the rail as a resident, I will do that. But great idea. I'll go to November 1st. We're pulling that permit, and it's up to them.
So, just quick, so I make sure I have it. So you're offering an amendment to your motion that, we will, the board, you'd like to make a motion to pull Consolidated's fiber optic cable permit pending that they come in for a meeting prior to the November 1st Board of Aldermen meeting.
If they do not, we will suspend their.
Is the original seconder okay with that amendment?
Yes.
Okay.
No, you said pull, I'd rather say suspend, just to
Suspend,
hold
okay,
it. I don't want to stop it. I mean, God, they're quite a ways away, but
Perfect. No.
a better word.
Suspend works. And just real quick, if I could offer a little bit of timeline too, because I have been working on this. So the last update had reached out to the regional vice president with the compiled list of concerns. He reviewed, he then sent that back to our local representative, which is Andy Rice. And Andy has been in contact with me. I know that they're obviously very, very busy trying to finish the build out, which is one of the reasons I think they've placed all their focus there. And we have not yet prioritized this meeting, but I am hearing that this is an urgent point now where they need to get in the next 2 weeks and talk to us about some strategies to move forward collectively in a way that
Greg
works.
Povey, I believe, is Rice's boss. Povey's the guy that was in my yard with smoking tires when I said that. So there's no way to treat a community, a resident, a member of the board, that's all.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you very much, everyone.
I just need the rest of my liquor license. There's 3 or 4 pages with this. I have 1 page back. Who has the rest of the document?
I don't.
I only got one.
I only got, well, maybe I do. Hold on. No, this is my copy. This is the,
Made it to me.
oh yeah, I only got 1 page.
I can't submit this application
blame
to
Mary.
DLC until I have
I haven't got any paper.
I blame Neri.
One of the millennials.
I gave it to you.
I only had one, baby.
We're not used to using paper.
Well, while we search for these missing documents, I have Alderman Gillum and Alderman.
I'm trying to understand, what permit are we pulling here, or we
there a
have control over?
There is a permit.
We have control over,
We gave them a permit.
We gave them a permit.
Right.
come into our city,
That's all I needed. I
cut our
wasn't sure if it
trees
was
and move our
state or
traffic
us.
and
Assume it's
whatever.
My minutes.
utility work.
Utility work. Okay, got it, thank you.
Attorney Bloomer, if you can speak to that.
Go ahead, I didn't take it. I remember you just laid one down and I only signed one.
I only have what came in.
You guys are gonna miss the whole Red Sox game.
I know, we gotta go.
I'm watching it right now.
They're up 6-0.
Found it.
It's right there.
Motion to vote?
No, go ahead. Attorney Bloomer.
And you said nothing.
You said, are you sure?
Schwarber hit a grand slam.
6-0, Matt, 6-0.
So if I may, can you vote on the amendment and then vote on the motion with the amendment? We haven't done any of that yet. Nothing has passed.
No, I accepted it as the motion maker, so it's all in one.
I did not.
There is still a lot of debate left.
We didn't vote on Sam's
Jeez, you
motion.
people, I swear to God, you
I
don't
have a
have any
question.
lives
I
whatsoever.
have service scheduled to be hooked up from Consolidated. Should I recuse myself from voting on this? I support Alderman Garuso, but
I have them coming Wednesday.
Yeah,
I don't think it really
same.
matters. It's already hooked up, right?
And all the lines have been
Oh,
run.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a different issue as far
Right.
as just, you know,
Kind of exciting.
respectability of.
Looking up on my poll, so I figure I'm being hooked up now.
1,000 megabits? $70.
Trees out front, do you?
Oh, yeah, I do.
they already cut them.
The CD, I already took care of it.
If I could bring us back, Attorney Bloomer is trying to shift something.
Does anyone have a specific recollection of when the permit was approved?
March.
I
It was
looked
one
at
of my
the-
first
I
meetings.
looked at the March minutes and I didn't see it immediately, but,
Take a look again, because Jim Rotundo, it was through him and something to do with, I believe, Rec and Parks. It was a package, he said, but he said, that's my project, this is my project, Sam. And Kratom said that.
Okay.
If it helps as a benchmark, it was after we discussed the CUD, because that's exactly what I warned about when we were discussing, depending on Consolidated, was, depending on a private entity like that. So when we joined the CUD, it was a few weeks later that they came
Okay.
to us.
You're right.
Alderman Dunders.
I do believe it was like March, April, May, by the way, very early on. So I support Alderman Garuso's motion here, and I do want to, listen, I'm all about progress technically, so I think it's really, really important that we take this seriously. If someone were to come in and take a wrecking ball to the side of our house, we'd be just as upset, well, more upset. I know it seems trivial, it's trees and it's bushes, but it's not, right? It takes 10, 15, 20, 30 years for these things to grow to the point where they're adding value to the property the way that they do. It's not a silly issue. It's very, very important. And the behavior and the way that things have happened by some of these subcontractors is a responsibility of Consolidated. Holding them accountable is absolutely what we would do if they did damage to our property that wasn't vegetation. Just because it's vegetation doesn't mean that it's not valuable.
Thank you, Alderman Dunges. All right, if there's no further discussion, questions, debate, we have a motion that has been amended and that has been unseconded to give Consolidated Communications until November 1st to meet with us to discuss these issues, or we would move to suspend their permit within the city of Rutland. Would all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. We are still under unfinished business. Hearing and seeing nothing, we're to miscellaneous motions, resolutions, and new business. We have one thing. So this is a proclamation regarding designating November as Lung Cancer Awareness Month in the city of Rutland. Just as a little bit of background, early summer, late spring, Johns Hopkins was reaching out to municipalities all across the United States, asking if they would adopt this resolution to bring awareness to lung cancer and its, the treatment options that exist out there. So we spoke with them a little bit. I brought the mayor in on this. I talked with the hospital as well. Unfortunately, they couldn't send a rep here tonight to speak to the program that they offer, but we all felt it was important and worth adopting, and we thought we'd save it until the final meeting before we move into November, which would be marked as Lung Cancer Awareness Month. So I will read this off to you real quick. So this is, whereas lung cancer is the leading cause of cancer death among men and women in the United States and in Vermont in 2021, accounting for more deaths than colon cancer, breast cancer, and prostate cancer combined. Whereas according to the Vermont Department of Health, there are 16,317 new lung cancer cases and 11,481 deaths because of lung cancer between 2013 and 2017 in Vermont. Whereas the 5-year survival rate for localized lung cancer is 59%, yet only 17% of lung cancers are diagnosed at this stage. Whereas screening for lung cancer for high-risk individuals using low-dose computed tomography can lead to the early detection of lung cancer and save lives, reducing the mortality by 20% when compared to screening the chest X-ray in the National Lung Screening Trial, and reducing risk of death at 10 years by 24% in men, 33% in women, as demonstrated by another large randomized trial. Whereas funding for lung cancer research trails far behind funding for research for many other cancers, and additional research is needed in early diagnosis, screening, and treatment for lung cancer, as well as in lung cancer affecting women and lung cancer health disparities. Whereas lung cancer in seasons is decreasing twice as fast in men as in women. Each year, more women die from lung cancer and breast cancer, and by 2035, more women will die from lung cancer than men. Whereas African Americans have the highest lung cancer screening incidence and mortality of all races, and disparities in lung cancer screening, diagnosis, treatment, and mortality are well characterized among African Americans and other racial minorities. Whereas lung cancer in never smokers is the 7th leading cause of lung cancer-related death and accounts for 17,000 to 26,000 deaths in the U.S. every year. 60 to 70% of never smokers diagnosed with lung cancer are women, and the proportion of lung cancers diagnosed in never smokers is increasing in the U.S. Whereas organizations working in the Rutland city community, such as the American Lung Cancer Screening Initiative and the Women's Lung Cancer Forum, are committed to educating about lung cancer screening, and working to increase lung cancer screening rates in Rutland City. Therefore, I, Dave Allaire, and the Rutland City Council do hereby proclaim November 2021 as Lung Cancer Awareness Month in Rutland City, and recognize the need for research in lung cancer affecting women and lung cancer health disparities, and encourage all citizens to learn about lung cancer and early detection through lung cancer screening.
A motion on that for the board, or no?
So I guess I'll take a motion, accept a motion to adopt the proclamation.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, it's been second. Alderman DePoy.
And I'd just like to add to I agree with everything that you've said there. One of the things that's really near and dear to my family is a condition called pulmonary fibrosis. Pulmonary fibrosis is also a very high percentage killer, along with the lung cancer. And I think the two sometimes go hand in hand, but they don't always. So I would say that lung health and lung diseases is something that we all need to focus on as well, because it is very increasing as far as the pulmonary fibrosis. And it's something that, I just wanted to say something about, because I've had 5 of my close relatives that have died of pulmonary fibrosis over the last 20 years. So thank you for that, and that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Alderman DeFoy. Any, Alderman Caruso?
I first want to apologize. I'm starting to have one of those episodes, so I'm going to have to leave. But the only thing, not to be picky, it says Board of Aldermen. Therefore, I, Dave Allaire, and the Rutland City Board of Aldermen, I would like to see on it. That's all. I mean, we are Rutland City Council, but we are called legally the Board of Aldermen. Whatever. It's a great thing, and I'm a cancer survivor, and I support anything we can do for them.
Thank you, Alderman Caruso. Any other questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, would all those in favor of adopting this proclamation please say aye?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Is there any other miscellaneous motions, resolutions, new business? Alderman DeFoy.
Last thing, I know I want to watch the Red Sox as much as you do, okay? But every week, Channel 3 has something called 3 on 3, okay? It's the 3 best plays of the weekend, and Rutland High School has now been on twice as the #1 football play of the weekend. Above golfers, soccer, everything throughout the state, Rutland High School now has been on twice. They're undefeated, 7-0. Their last game's this Friday. I expect you all there. And it's actually really special for me. There's only 2 people that like this kid more than I do, and that's his mother, whom I'm married to, and his father. I'm his stepfather, but Jonah Bassett made a play. It's the second time he, for Rutland High School, has been the #1 3-on-3 for WCAX this year. And they're having an amazing season as a team, and he's having an amazing season as well. So
Congrats.
just wanted to let you all know that.
Thank you, Alderman DeFoy.
And motion to adjourn.
To a date certain. Don't we have to?
Yeah, so we would like to make a motion to adjourn to a date certain, and that would be Wednesday, 5:30 p.m. And this would be to take up the executive session request for labor relations.
This Wednesday.
Don't look at me, I didn't set the date. That's the one over here.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Laid off, Matt.
That was there's a divorce in play here now.
I've got Thursday, Vicious Dog on Thursday, and
Can we double up?
We shouldn't be here that long, though. It's
All right.
just the police.
Are you kidding me? This meeting should have been 30 minutes tonight.
Motion to adjourn to Wednesday at 5:30.
I did read it. I do say yes.
We have a motion to adjourn to Wednesday at 5:30, and it has been seconded. Would all those in favor please say aye?
Aye.
Those opposed? We are adjourned.